Welcome to the show indeed, our feature, Friday the 13th, Part 1, starring Jay Buhner, who last night continued to be a nightmare for Cleveland Indian pitching. The 7th time Buhner has homered this year against Cleveland. Next, the sequel, Friday the 13th, Part 2, also starring Jay Buhner. But this time, with Seattle protecting a 2-1 lead into the 8th, the horror became his. To the edge of the track, the ball really... With the game now tied, the Mariners were in danger of wasting a Randy Johnson start. Which brings us to Friday the 13th, Part 3, still starring Jay Buhner. A drive to right center field. Ramirez going back. Atlanta can do it. So as Buhner's game-winning redemption shot sailed into the Cleveland night, Friday the 13th became yesterday. And with Game 4 approaching, now it's time for another show.
Live from Cleveland, it's Saturday night.
Well, Jay Buhner and the Mariners can afford to chuckle about all that happened here last night in Game 3. But the Cleveland Indians, best team in baseball over the full year in 1995, are not smiling, not at all. They need at least one win in the next 2 here to send it back to Seattle. They need to win them both, Games 4 and 5, to have any margin of error once they get to the Kingdome. And there's more bad news, and lots of it, as we welcome you to Jacobs Field for Game 4. Bad news from the Cleveland perspective. Bob Costas along with Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker. Changes in the Indian lineup. Not changes by choice, changes of necessity, forced by injuries. Let's go down to the field and check with Jim Gray. Take it, Jimmy.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. Well, the Indians were dealt a very bad double play overnight. A few hours ago, Albert Bell arrived at the stadium on crutches. He will not play tonight. He was hit by a pitch by Norm Charlton in the 9th inning last night. It hit his foot, but he sprained his ankle trying to get out of the way, so he will not play tonight and will be replaced by Wayne Kirby. In fact, Mike Hargrove, the manager, told us that Bell is, in fact, even uncertain for tomorrow. Now, in addition, Sandy Alomar, the fine catcher for the Indians, he's not going to start tonight either. He had a bad night of sleep and has a pinched nerve in his neck. Said he slept very funny, so Tony Pena will fill in for him. Bob?
Well, it doesn't matter. When you go 144 in the regular season, you get into a short series, just about anything can happen, and it doesn't look all that good for Mike Hargrove and the Indians. Let's talk about the pitching pairing.
Well, a couple of power pitchers tonight. It's right-hander Andy Bennis for Seattle. He's won 7 and lost 2 on the other side. You've got right-hander Kenny Hill. Both hard throwers. Good breaking ball for Bennis. Slider, slurve. On the other side, Kenny Hill, good fastball, and he's got a very good split-fingered fastball, Bob.
20 degrees cooler than last night. 53 degrees as game time approaches. Back with the lineups in a minute, but first to Hannah Storm.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Storm. Welcome to Game 4 of the League Championship Series. While you watch the Indians try to even that series at 2 games apiece, the Atlanta Braves try to close out the Cincinnati Reds in 4 straight. Last night, Charlie O'Brien's 3-run homer in the 6th inning provided all the offense the Braves and Greg Maddux would need as they cruised to a 5-2 victory. But the offensive woes continue for Reggie Sanders and the Reds. This strikeout with the bases loaded was his 3rd of the game and his 7th in his last 8 at-bats. Also struggling, Ron Gant, who had hoped to put on a show against his former Atlanta teammates. Instead, Gant is only 3 for 12 with 1 RBI and no extra base hits. And he will face his former teammate Steve Avery, who struggled to a 7-13 record this season, but is looking to recapture the form that made him the 1991 ALCS MVP. We have just learned that David Justice, the Atlanta right fielder, will not be available tonight after injuring his knee during batting practice. We'll keep you updated on all the action from Atlanta, and we'll get you out to the first pitch at Jacobs Field after this from your local station.
As we return to Jacobs Field, here's tonight's Budweiser Mariners starting lineup, and you should be familiar with it by now. The Indians do not start a left-hander, no left-hander in their rotation all year long. And so it's the same as it has been. Coleman, Cora, Griffey, the 2 Martinezes. Buhner, last night's hero. He is simply pounding Cleveland pitching. 5 regular season homers in just 9 games, and 3 in the first 3 games of this playoff series. Flowers, Soho, and Wilson. 29-year-old Ken Hill, 6'2", 205 from Lynn, Massachusetts. Runner-up to Greg Maddux last year in the Cy Young Award voting in the National League. 16-5 for Montreal. Then they traded him prior to the season back to St. Louis, where he had begun his career. He struggled with the Cardinals. In late July, they dealt him to Cleveland for David Bell, ironically, the son of Indian coach Buddy Bell. And here with Cleveland, he's been 4-1 in 11 starts, an ERA of 3.98. Didn't work in the division series against the Red Sox. Would have pitched Game 4 at Fenway, but the Indians swept. Here's Coleman. Ball one outside. Vince is just 1 for 13. Has a stolen base, and he struck out 5 times in this series. Tomey in close at third. Back of third. Vizquel from shortstop racing into foul ground for a backhanded play. And a seat in the front row.
What a play by Omar Vizquel. You know, in talking with this guy before the game tonight, if there's a more casual player in this league and talking about his position, as you see him with a nice backhanded catch, and as you said a moment ago, ending up in the front row. What a play by Vizquel. So easy. And up against the padding, no problem for him. And evidently Seattle fans there because nobody helped him. Nice easy play, though, by Vizquel. Tough play. He made it look easy.
Switch hitting second baseman Joey Cora takes a strike. For Ken Hill, when he's right, the fastball gets into the low 90s. His mechanics were messed up earlier this year, though, and a lot of scouts had him timed only in the mid-80s. He feels as if he's straightened himself out now with pitching coach Mark Wiley's help. As Cora pops one wide at first, Sorrento and Baerga in behind him, and this one is out of play. Baerga reaching in and still holding the glove out there as if he caught it. First base umpire Tim McClellan says, no, you didn't.
Well, I think what Baerga and Sorrento were talking about here, there you see the reach-in by interference. Yeah, they wanted fan interference on the play, and I'll tell you what, to be perfectly honest about it, he may have had a chance to catch this ball. Absolutely. I think he had a shot. He may have lost it when the hands went up. Here he is right up against the railing, and I think he had a chance to catch the ball. He had a little bit of a gripe, but the right field umpire, Rick Reed, saying nothing doing.
You know, the fan ought to go back to the fan clinic. If an Indian had hit that ball, yeah, of course you try to catch it. But since a Mariner hit it, you've got to forego the souvenir and give your guy a chance.
Well, no matter how many times you hear that announcement at the ballpark.
Little bloop into shallow left. Wayne Kirby comes on, and Kirby makes the catch, starting in left field for the injured Albert Bell. Kirby is an excellent defensive outfielder. A couple of years ago, before he lost his job to Manny Ramirez, he led the league with 19 outfield assists. Lofton and Ramirez complete the outfield. Tomey and Sorrento back in the starting lineup with a right-hander on the hill for the Mariners. Pena behind the plate. Alomar waking up with a stiff neck, sleeping in an awkward position, according to his account, unable to go.
And just to finish up that thought, Bob, every time you hear that announcement about interfering with a batter or throwing ball, no matter how many times you hear it, in your home ballpark, somebody always reaches out and tries to grab one.
6 for 12 with a homer in this series for Griffey. 5 homers in the division series against the Yanks. The plate umpires Dale Ford, Tim McClellan at first, Drew Coble at second, Dave Phillips at third. Left field line, Darrell Cousins, Rick Reed. Right field line. 2 out, nobody on, and the 1-1 pitch is in the dirt. Hill's best pitch is that split finger when he's got it going. As I said, he feels as if his mechanics are in order now, and he's throwing the ball, he says, as well as he did last year when he pitched so well for Montreal.
Now, I've had a chance to watch him a couple of times this year against Milwaukee. And as you said, Bob, when he's right, his fastball in the 90s, and again, the splitter is a big pitch for him. He's got a good change of pace, too. There's the splitter right there. You can see that little bit of a rotation on it, not like you'd see on a fastball, and Griffey fouls it out of play.
The arm angle you saw there is key, too, because he had been throwing across his body as Griffey fouls it back. too much across his body, and that was costing him velocity.
He was actually blocking himself, Bob. He was throwing across his body. I mean, stepping one way and then throwing across his body the other way, and really losing velocity. I mean, it stands to reason if you're going to throw that way, throwing across your body and your front foot, that landing foot blocking you, you're going to lose velocity.
The 2-2 to Griffey is in the dirt. How many 3-2 fastballs, even from a guy with a good fastball like Hill, do you think Ken Griffey sees? Not all that many.
Well, not all that many, but I think in the opening inning, I think you got to challenge this guy in his first AB.
Let's see if he does. Tried to run it down and away, and Griffey fights it off.
I mean, when you got Martinez, Edgar Martinez, who's had a tough series. Thus far, he's 0 for 11, but when you got guys like the two Martinez's following this guy, I think you got a challenge. I mean, you take a chance on giving up a long ball, but it's only a solo job.
And he got him with the splitter. 1, 2, 3 go the Mariners. Indians coming up in the first. Bottom of the first in Cleveland, and here is tonight's Budweiser Indians starting lineup. The first three are the same: Lofton, Vizquel, and Baerga. With Bell out, Murray moves up to the cleanup spot as the DH, and Thome moves up to number 5. Ramirez in right, Sorrento at first. 38-year-old Tony Pena back at the plate. Still a good handler of pitchers in terms of the way he calls a game, and as you know, he had the 13th inning game-winning home run against the Red Sox in Game 1 of the division series. And Wayne Kirby will get his first ABs of this series. They've used him as a pinch runner and late-inning defensive replacement. He hasn't had a chance to hit yet. He's in the 9th slot. Against Andy Bennis, 28 years old, spent 7.5 years with the Padres, where he was generally a pretty good pitcher on a not-so-good team. He twice won 15 games for San Diego. He's 28 years old, 6'6", 240, from Evansville, Indiana. His record with Seattle was 7-2, but his ERA was 5.86. However, Piniella says, you know, you can discount a lot of that because it was just 2 or 3 starts. And in fact, in 3 of his 12 starts with Seattle, he didn't last through the second inning, and that blew up the ERA. Coleman, Griffey, and Buhner in the outfield. Flowers, Soho, Cora, Tino Martinez on the infield. Dan Wilson, who doesn't have a hit in this series, but is a darn good defensive catcher, and Bennis on the mound.
Well, Andy Bennis, again, as you said before, Bob, from time to time, he's had problems early in a game. He has a very good fastball. He throws a slider curve, which he calls a slurve, then a slider, and a pretty decent change of pace. But from time to time, he has problems early.
Lofton 6 for 12 with a pair of triples in this series. Tripled and scored the first run for Cleveland last night. RBI single to knock in the second. Flowers in on the grass at third. And a fastball right down the middle for strike 1. Bennis had 2 starts against the Yankees in the division series and wound up being a footnote to 2 of the best games in recent playoff history. Inside 1-1. He worked 5 innings and got a no decision in the 15-inning Game 2 Classic, which the Mariners lost 7-5. Albert Bell just came out of the clubhouse and just sat down in the Indian dugout. There's a line drive which will fall for a hit, and Lofton is aboard. This 1995 League Championship Series game is brought to you by Buick and your local dealers. Remember Buick, the new symbol for quality in America. Burger King, where you can get your burger's worth. And Network MCI, how to get modern communications technology working for your business. Lofton stole a base last night. It was his first steal of the postseason. He led the league with 54, the 4th straight season. He's topped the American League in stolen bases. He's been nursing a sore left hamstring, but he appeared to run well on both his triple and his steal last night. Vizquel's 0 for 11 in this series, but had a sacrifice fly last night. Vizquel is a good bunter. among the league leaders in sacrifices.
And a nice number 2 man behind Lofton. In that number 2 spot with a guy like Lofton aboard, you're going to get some decent pitches to hit. Catcher always wants something decent to throw on. And Bennis trying to keep him close. Flowers playing up tight at third for Vizquel. As you see, Omar Vizquel looking for his first hit in this championship series.
Lofton's not going. The pitch high and away. Started to say about Bennis, 2 no decisions in the Yankee series. 5 innings of work in the 15-inning Game 2 Yankee win at Yankee Stadium. Then he started the 5th and deciding game against David Cone, worked 6 2/3, left trailing 4-2. Mariners, of course, wound up tying it, forcing extra innings, and winning it in 11. Coming out of a regular season where they had to go to a 1-game playoff against the Angels, just about everybody was working on 3 days rest for Seattle in the first playoff series against the Yanks. Now Lou Piniella has been able to get his starters some very long rest. Bennis going on 6 days rest today. Bosio tomorrow on 8 days rest. Lofton not going, and ball 2 to Vizquel.
Well, that's what a guy like Lofton does to you. As we said early in the telecast about Andy Bennis, he has problems early with control and has been known to give up a long ball. And I'll tell you, he's given up some long home runs this year, Bob. He still throws hard, as I said, good breaking stuff. But when you've got a guy like Lofton aboard, he bothers you. I don't care who you are. A guy like Lofton, who's got that great speed, bothers you. He's not even getting to a maximum lead yet. When he goes back standing, that's not much of a lead for Kenny Lofton.
Well, he certainly changed the pitch selection. The first 2 pitches to Vizquel were as close to a pitch out as you can get without actually pitching out.
Well, again, Wilson with fastballs, you want something decent to throw on if you're going to have a shot at him.
Bluffs the bunt and takes ball 3 by Erga on deck.
It does change as a pitcher, and it does change your catching repertoire once in a while. When you have a guy like Lofton aboard, you certainly want to keep your pitcher in the game and have a shot to nail a runner. But Bennis here with fastballs hasn't been close on Vizquel.
Bottom of the first on a chilly night in Cleveland. Cold front coming through. It'll be colder still tomorrow. The 3-0 pitch, and he takes a strike. They say that the expected game time temperature tomorrow, with some rain mixed in, will be 37, 38 degrees.
Long John time.
Saw you down in the clubhouse asking the clubhouse boy if he had an extra pair.
Well, I went to the Cleveland clubhouse, and I'm going to buy a pair. You got that right.
There he goes on 3-1. It's a called strike, and the throw is not in time. Skips into center. Lofton back on his feet and on to third. Stolen base and E2 in the scorebook. Man at third, nobody out.
There's a fastball strike on the outside corner. A good pitch for Wilson to throw on in the dirt. Joey Cora trying to short hop, but it got by him, and Lofton winds up at third. Well, I'll tell you, what a weapon speed is at the top of the order.
Now the 3-2 to Vizquel misses, and he trots down to first as Baerga steps in.
There's that short hop throw that went off the glove of Joey Cora and wound up in center field. But every once in a while, Bob, as a catcher, I have to say this. You know, there are times when you have to make that perfect throw to second because you know you've got a guy like Lofton who has that great speed. And you make the throw, trying to throw it on the bag. Sometimes you come up short as Wilson did, but you're always hopeful that the shortstop or the second baseman is going to get his body in front of the ball instead of trying to backhand or short hop it as Cora did.
Infield looks for the double play. Bennis, who could use a strikeout here, led the National League in strikeouts in 1994. And it's in there to Baerga. With Bell out, Murray is on deck. at third. Vizquel at first. And Baerga with a slow ground ball to second. Charging it is Cora. His play is to first. Lofton crosses. And Vizquel moves up into scoring position. Well, this is the first time in this series that the Cleveland Indians have had to play from behind. The first time all year. They lose game 1. And they have to get a win at the Kingdome to get even. Now they're down 2-1. And they need to get even here at home. All year long, they never faced anything like this kind of pressure. The season wasn't really a pennant race for them. It was more like a coronation. A ball outside to Murray. They won the division by 30 games. Look at the other teams in the playoffs. They were 14 games better than Boston, 21 games better than the wild card Yankees, 22 games better in terms of season records than these Mariners. But they've got their hands full in the LCS. In there 1-1.
Well, in talking with Lou Piniella last night, Bob, that's what he said about the Seattle Mariners. Wanting to win one game here to get back to Seattle. Tonight, it's Hargrove talking about the same thing. I mean, with the win last night, Seattle with a chance to sweep here and go home happy and end it all. As you said, the Indians need a win to get back to Seattle to try and clinch there or win it there.
2 balls and a strike. Albert Bell missed only 1 game all year. One of the most durable players in the American League.
Well, there was some question as to whether he might play tonight right up till game time. Maybe not in the field, but as a DH, but evidently he couldn't go.
Murray lines the 2-1 pitch to very deep right center. This one is on its way and gone. Say he's filled the cleanup spot rather nicely.
Boy, what a player he's been. What a player that guy has been. Here it is by Bennis. That looked like a slider, Bob, that didn't slide very much. Right down Main Street, and I mean Murray really hit it deep. It was gone as soon as he hit it. Ken Griffey Jr. in center knew it was gone. Into the bullpen in deep right center. Almost into the bullpen, I should say, bouncing into the crowd out there.
So here's Tomey, the third baseman. Bennis has been plagued by first-inning troubles ever since he came over to Seattle.
Well, that's what I said at the top of the telecast, the fact that he's had early-inning problems, and once he gets through that, I mean, he's been all right. But it's been problem times for him, and here in the opening inning, they've got him for 3 with only 1 out.
In a 4th of his Seattle starts, he didn't make it out of the 2nd inning. Piniella walked out and spoke with him very briefly. Indians in front here, 3-0.
He's had control problems, and you see him miss the last couple of times on Tomey. Maybe the prior pitch to that last high fastball was to let Tomey know, I'm coming inside on you. But this time, falling behind now 2-1 with a guy that can take you deep, too.
Swing and a miss, 2-2. Murray, who had a home run in Game 2 of the division series against the Red Sox here at Jacobs Field, had been just 2 for 14 in this series and without an RBI before he crushed that one to right center. It holds at 2-2 to Tomey. The veteran plate umpire Dale Ford.
Here's that last fastball fouled by Tomey, and watch the mask of Dale Ford. They look bad, but they don't hurt that much.
full count. Right-hander Bob Wells gets up in the Mariner pen. Piniella told us before the game that Bob Wolcott, the rookie Game 1 starter, is in the pen tonight. Bosio is a starter tomorrow. The Indians are making a change for tomorrow, though. Oral Hershiser will pitch Game 5 on 3 days rest. They're a little concerned about Dennis Martinez nursing a sore knee and a tender elbow. Cold, damp weather expected tomorrow. He might do better. Speaking of Martinez, as you look at Hershiser, might do better in the controlled conditions of the Kingdome for Game 6. And then, if there is a Game 7, they would go with Nagy. The 3-2. And he draws the second walk of the inning. If there is a Game 6, and if Seattle is in front 3-2, Tim Belcher is the likely starter for Lou Piniella, and he saves Randy Johnson for Game 7. But if the Indians win tonight and tomorrow, and Seattle trails 3-2, he'll use Randy Johnson in Game 6 to try to force a 7th game.
Righto. You know, and both managers rather casual tonight. As a matter of fact, talking to Tim Belcher, and I talked to Randy Johnson earlier tonight. He said, no problems at all. I felt good last night, and I'm ready to go my next time out. Talking with Andy Bennis, he said, I'm ready tonight. You know, in watching Piniella go out there, and we're in the opening inning here, he's down 3. I think Piniella went out there the first time to say, hey, look, you're my man. Get me out of the inning, and we'll go from there. And Bennis winds up walking the next guy. That's Jim Thome. But with a strike here on Ramirez.
Who hit .308 for the year with 31 homers. And had 2 home runs among his 4 hits in Game 2 in Seattle. 5 for 11 overall in the series. First base coach Dave Nelson with Thome. Pitch is inside. The Indians, as I said, 22 games better, playing a balanced schedule than Seattle during the year. But Seattle is misleading if you just look at the record. They were without Griffey for almost 3 months. They didn't get Coleman and this guy Bennis until late in the year. Charlton didn't become their closer and really hit a groove until the last couple of months. Check down at first. Don't need to. Dale Ford says it's a strike. 2-2.
Now, Manny Ramirez that time sitting on a 2-1. What he thought was going to be a fastball. Bennis comes with a low breaking ball. Down low and away. And he can't check in time.
Struck him out. So the first strikeout for Bennis. That brings up Sorrento, who had 25 homers during the regular year. Bennis just trying to survive the first. Flowers way off the bag at third. They give him the lines in both left and right.
Bennis gets out of this opening inning down 3-0. I mean, it's no major deficit for this Seattle ball club.
With this new setup, with wild cards and mini divisions, you're going to get some postseason qualifiers who really are just mediocre teams. And they'll make a quick exit. But you're also going to get teams like Seattle who come together late in the season. They bolstered their club with late season acquisitions really in pursuit of the wild card. Then when the Angels folded and came back to them, they chased the division title and got it. They're a very formidable club coming into postseason. I felt, and I think you did too, that outside of Cleveland, this was the best team in the American League by season's end.
Well, without a doubt, as you look at Randy Johnson and Norm Charlton, I've had a chance to watch this club, you know, all summer long, Bob, and they're a legitimate contender. And we talk so much about Cleveland all the time and their power. This Seattle club hasn't had to take a back seat to anybody. I mean, they can hit with power. They've got good average hitters. And they've got a decent pitching staff to go along with it. American League's leading batter, Edgar Martinez at .356. Nothing in the series thus far for Martinez.
And Sorrento strikes out on a high fastball. 2 strikeouts for Bennis in the inning, but he allows 3 runs, 2 of them on the Eddie Murray home run. 73 degrees at game time last night, 53 tonight.
And as you said earlier, 37 or 38 degrees tomorrow night. Tomorrow's high, they say, may reach 50.
But the game time temperature, high 30s.
Yeah. Big breeze tonight blowing out towards right field, Bob, and again, it's a lot colder downstairs than it is up where we sit.
Edgar Martinez still looking for his first hit in this series after going 12 for 21 and batting .571 against the Yankees. He's 0 for 11 against Cleveland. This is his longest hitless streak since he went 0 for 12 in August of '94. Fouled off. This year, prior to this series, he had never gone longer than 8 at-bats without a hit.
Well, he's considered by a lot of people, a lot of players, managers, coaches, and you name it, as probably baseball's best overall hitter right now. You're going to get some arguments about Tony Gwynn and a couple of others over in the National League, but this guy can hit.
If the Mariners make it to the World Series, Martinez would play third base in the National League Park without the DH. He played only 7 games in the field this year. Slow roll at a third. Thome charging. Bare hands and can't make a play. So there is Edgar Martinez's first hit, albeit a feeble one.
Just a little breaking ball down low and away. And you know, Edgar Martinez always talks about how he tries to hit pitches to right field. Something out of way, he'll try to go that way. That's been his problem in this series. Pitches down and away or even up and away, he's tried to pull. And that's what happens. A little bouncing ball that Thome couldn't handle. It's an infield single. But he's been hitting pop-ups and little balls in foul territory, weak little ground balls, striking out.
Tino Martinez, just 1 for 11. He hit over 400 against the Yankees. As you see, 409 in those 5 games, just 1 for 11. Through 3 games against Cleveland. Last night's hero, Jay Buhner, on deck. Buhner sat on that bench last night after the 8th inning error. The first fly ball error. He's had some throwing errors, but the first fly ball that he's botched in 2 years in right field for the Mariners, sat on that bench and no one came within 10 feet of him. Not because they were angry with him, but because they know how intense he is. They were afraid that if they walked over, even his manager, Lou Piniella, said, hey, forget about it, kid, we'll pick you up, that he would have bitten their heads off.
Now, he's been around long enough, and a ball that he knows he should have caught, and it took Randy Johnson out of a possible win situation. They were leading at that time 2-1. And when the ball was hit by Espinosa, a ball that was hit fairly well, and Buhner thought it was rather routine, and he set himself. I started backpedaling instead of turning around, running back, then setting myself and making the catch. He got a glove on the ball, but he couldn't make the play.
And the 2-2 pitch to Tino Martinez, and Hill strikes him out. As Jay Buhner ambles toward the batter's box, we head off to Hamastorm.
Bob, in the second in Atlanta, Fred McGriff's on first. Mike Dever at the plate playing for the injured David Justice. Hits into the double play. Barry Larkin gets it, steps on the bag, and throws to first. For the DP, Steve Avery's holding steady, by the way, for Atlanta with 2 strikeouts. He's allowed 1 hit. No score in Atlanta.
All right, Hannah, thanks. Walked into the clubhouse before the game. Said to Jay Buhner, a strange night for you on Friday the 13th. On both ends of the emotional roller coaster. As he takes a ball, and he said, you don't know this. I was born on Friday the 13th. August the 13th, 1964. It was a Friday. Hill's 1-0 pitch. Couldn't catch up with that fastball. Buhner is such a pleasant and friendly fella. When he smiles, he lights up the whole room. But when he puts that game face on, he looks like the guy who might escort you to the gallows.
He looks like a Friday the 13th.
2-1.
A chance to talk with him in the clubhouse tonight. As you said, Bob, laughing and horsing around. Both clubhouses tonight were very loose. Mariners with a lot of card games going and watching the afternoon football games. No problems at all down there, and the same holds true for the Indians. Until they found out that Bell couldn't play, and then Alomar to top it off.
3 balls and a strike now to Buhner. The Mariners have their sights set on the World Series, no doubt about it. And they're capable of getting there. And the way they're playing, may be capable of winning it. But no matter what happens from this point on, it's been a great run for Seattle. The Indians, though, would have to have a feeling of disappointment if they don't at least make it to the World Series, if not win it. As glorious as their whole season has been. There's a walk to Buhner, and Blowers now will be the tying run at the plate.
Yeah, you're right. I think it would be a disappointment to baseball fans overall, American League fans anyway, that have watched this club play all year long and feel this is the best club to represent the American League in a World Series. But you won't hear that from Lou Piniella. I mean, Lou Piniella says this club can win. How loose was he tonight in talking about his club and how they're ready to play? He said, hey, you've no changes. Nobody's hurt. Everybody's ready to play. Have fun.
There is no doubt that Cleveland, far and away, was the best team in this league and probably the best team in baseball over the year. But right now, this is pretty even. And in fact, the Mariners holding the 2-1 edge. And with Randy Johnson ready to start at least one more game, if anything, the edge belongs to them.
Absolutely. And as I said at the top of the telecast, Bob, this guy, talking about Kenny Hill, can have problems too. I mean, he's been hit hard from time to time, despite the fact that he does throw good. He and Bennis are kind of similar.
1-0 pitch coming to Blowers. Swing and a miss.
This guy's got the little better breaking ball and talking about the splitter. But again, they're similar. Both hard throwers. There's that slider out of the strike zone, and Blowers went after it. Another guy that can hit the ball deep to right center, to center. Excellent power.
Well, the wind is blowing out toward right. 1-2.
Tell you what, you stay out there all night long, you're going to be tough. Wind blowing very, very briskly now, picking up. Chance of showers again here tonight. Going out towards right.
An infield single and a walk. Wrapped around a strikeout. Gives Seattle 2 on with 1 down. They trail 3-0 in the top of the second. Hill ahead of Blowers, 1-2. And it's fouled off. Luis Sojo will be next.
Saw Tony Pena at the last moment move inside to take that fastball. You sit outside as a catcher, always on the outside corner. Those hitters have a tendency to take a peek at you every once in a while. That's at the last moment, right before the delivery. Pena moving inside for that fastball, and Blowers just got a piece of it.
Got him. Second strikeout of the inning, third of the game for Ken Hill. In the inning and a third that he pitched in Game 1 of the division series out of the bullpen against the Red Sox, it looked to us as if he had very good stuff, and it continues here in his next appearance.
He's got good stuff tonight. He's throwing hard, and again, if he has the splitter going the way it should go, I mean, he can be awfully tough. But again, as I said before, he's had problems also. I mean, he can give them up quick.
won 16 games twice for Montreal, 16-9 in 92, 16-5 in 94. Who seems to step in the bucket on every swing, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's one of those hackers and whackers, Bob. I mean, he hits probably more pitches out of the strike zone than anybody else on this Seattle club. He goes up there looking. He's not looking for a particular zone. He's just looking for something to hit, a ball to hit. That's all.
Hit in a shallow right by Erga back. Ramirez in, and Ramirez is there. He was playing very shallow to begin with and was able to make the play. Seattle leads 2, still trails 3-0. The host city for any big sports event loves to have the Goodyear blimp providing aerial views that can highlight their downtown area. Tonight, the Goodyear blimp Spirit of Akron hovering over Cleveland. Jose Mesa worked just 1 inning last night. And there's some controversy about that. It is very hard to question anything Mike Hargrove does because it's worked all year long to the tune of 144. But Lou Piniella used Norm Charlton for 3 innings last night with the score tied, just hoping to keep his team close. Jose Mesa has gone more than 1 inning in only 2 appearances this year. Almost always it's just for 1 inning and out, and usually he gets the job done coming in with a lead. In the postseason, Mike Hargrove has twice used him in tie games. In the 10th inning of a 13-inning game in the opener of the division series against the Red Sox, and in the 9th inning last night after Charles Nagy pitched 8. But in each case, he would not let him come back out for a 2nd inning.
Well, I think when you look at the Indians' record in come-from-behind wins or in late-inning wins, you use a guy like Mesa for 1 inning and get him out of there and hope you can score in the 9th to get him a win instead of a save. And he's done that. He's done that a number of times, talking with the Indian broadcasters and some of the writers here. They said it's not unusual for Hargrove to work him like that.
Pena hasn't had an at-bat in this series. 1 for 2 against the Red Sox, but the hit was huge. A 3-0 pitch from Zane Smith that he took out of here in left center. And the boys in the truck, no sooner do I say it than they have it, along with a nice little effect. A 3-0 pitch with 2 out in the bottom of the 13th. And as you see, some people had gone home. The bleachers about half full. There had been 2 rain delays. With the rain delays, the game was about 6 hours old, and he won it with that one. Fastball high from Dennis. 2-1.
Yeah, that was a big night for Tony Pena. No doubt about it when he hit it.
Omar Vizquel goes to the hot water bottle. And Bennis goes up high to run the count to 3-1. Omar not experiencing too many nights like this in Caracas. Don't groove one, Mr. Bennis. We know what Pena will do if he gets to sit on a pitch. Just ask Zane Smith. And Bennis put that right on the inside corner.
Excuse me, Bob. That was just a little bit tight on him that time. Tony said, "Well, you throw a fastball for?" I'm not looking fastball there. Just a little bit tight on him. But a ball, I think that if he's looking fastball, he could have hit and hit hard.
And the 3-2 pitch, he does hit it hard. Coming on and left is Coleman. He misplays the ball, keeps it in front of him, but Pena with a huge turn, and now he's coming back. He was literally halfway to second base. Coleman's left field misadventures continue. He had trouble with the Lofton triple last night. This ball was hit like a bullet, but Coleman could have caught it.
That's why I thought he was going to catch it, Bob. It was hit very hard by Pena. Here it is again. He got a late break on the ball, and then on the short hop knocks it down. Pena wisely leading off here in the inning, made the big turn but holds it first. And again, a ball that I think Coleman should have caught. No doubt.
And now here's Kirby taking a ball. Lou Piniella said he considered sitting Coleman down for tonight's game, having a little trouble in the outfield. And just 1 for 14 now, counting his one at-bat in this game in the series.
Really trying to poke at the ball, jab at the ball, and hitting. And again, as you said earlier, the ball that was hit by Lofton last night, I thought he should have caught. I think if you ask him, he'd tell you the same thing. And again, Bennis having problems here. 2-0 behind on Kirby. Again, Piniella has the luxury, Bob. They're up 2-1, so you might be able to stay with Bennis a little bit longer than you normally would. But, I mean, they still want this game. They want to get out of here with as much as they can get.
Wells was throwing in the first. Back up again. 3-0 to Kirby. Wayne's brother, Terry, is the Miami Dolphins running back. Wayne Kirby, very popular in the Indian clubhouse. Spent 9 years in the minor leagues, starting out in the Dodger organization before he finally got to the bigs with the Indians in 1991. Played regularly a couple of years ago and had a good year. But when Manny Ramirez arrived, he became a utility man. At first and the 3-1 pitch. That'll make the seats. Kenny Hill alongside Bud Black, Charles Nagy, last night's starter who performed so well, Hershiser and Martinez. Hershiser tomorrow in Game 5, Martinez in Game 6, and Bell who knows when. Winfield next to him, not on the active roster, but taking BP before each game just in case somebody should get hurt. Yep. And he could be activated for the World Series if they made it that far. He goes on the 3-2 pitch, and Kirby bounces it to third, and they have only one play. And here's Pena sprinting in behind Blowers, and he makes it. What a great play by Pena. Flowers had to come up out of the grass to make the play on the throw, and Pena making a wide turn at second, running on the pitch, realized that Flowers would have to retreat to the bag, and he took advantage of it. Al, there you see a winded Tony Pena. He never hesitated. As soon as he saw Flowers make a motion to make the throw to first. There you see him hesitate a little bit. As soon as he sees Flowers make the throw, and he can't get back in time to take the throw from Martinez, Pena makes it in there. And a heads up and an excellent play by Tony Pena. Look how far he came outside. Then with a head first slide. You think he don't love that bag? Lofton fouls it back for strike one. He singled, stole a base, moved up on an error, and eventually scored on an RBI ground out by Baerga in the first. Murray followed that with a home run. 3 in the first, and that's where it stands now. Indians looking for more inside 1-1.
There again is a bouncer hit to Flowers. He looked at Pena momentarily, and as soon as he turned and made the throw to first, Pena lit out for third. Look at him hook that bag.
2-1.
The Seattle outfield against Lofton shifted way around the left. The right field line wide open. And again, Lofton with a little power. He hit 7 during the regular season. There you see the right fielder, Buhner, way off the line. And with the wind blowing the way it is tonight, he may just try to get out in front of one and poke it.
Up high, 3 balls and a strike.
Well, here's a situation where you want to get a ball in the air, Bob, a sac fly to get the runner in from third and hit it well enough where it's going to score Pena.
Bennis has already thrown 50 pitches. And here's a line drive to right. Buhner will make the play. Tagging at third is Pena. Who would think that the legs of Tony Pena would produce the fourth run?
And look at that Indian dugout. And the Dave Winfield, along with just about everybody else in there, laughing and enjoying it with Tony Pena. That was a big, big play. Again, Lofton trying to hit one and hit it hard and keep it in the air. Picks up the RBI.
If you're just joining us, Albert Bell with a badly sprained ankle. Trying to get out of the way of a pitch that hit him on the instep from Norm Charlton in the ninth inning last night. Not in the lineup. We don't know if he can play tomorrow. There he is seated next to Dave Winfield. So the Indians trying to draw even in the series without the guy who very well could be the American League's MVP. Their 50-homer man. 2-1 to Vizquel. Walked his first time up. The 2-2 pitch to him. He goes down swinging, but the Indians add another run off Venice and lead it 4-0 after 2 at Jacobs Field.
Back to Jacobs Field in a moment. In Atlanta, the Braves looking for a sweep of the Reds. Mark Lemke facing Reds ace Pete Shurik. A single to left. Scores Rafael Belliard from second to put the Braves up 1-0. Earlier in the inning, Shurik was hit on his pitching hand by a Steve Avery line drive, but he stayed in the game. Back to Cleveland.
Albert Bell not in the lineup, so he has time for hijinks on the Cleveland bench. Ken Hill has been staked to a 4-0 lead. He should be strong tonight, except for that one relief stint about 10 days ago in Game 1 against Boston. He has not been called upon. Dan Wilson steps in and takes a ball.
Looks like he's throwing the ball well. He's struck out 3 over the first couple of innings. And leading 4-0.
Randy Johnson, by the way, threw exactly 100 pitches in his 8 innings last night. So if he has to come back on 3 days rest again in Tuesday's Game 6, that should be very doable for him. He had a game earlier this year against Cleveland, as a matter of fact, in which he threw 160 pitches, the most he's ever thrown in a game. And he was really piling up the pitches in the Yankee series. 116 in Game 3, comes back and throws about 40 on 1 day's rest and a relief stint of 3 innings in Game 5. So, relatively speaking, he's not hard-pressed in this series. Still 1-2 to Wilson.
I asked him tonight, Bob, in the clubhouse. He had ice on his elbow and on his arm in the clubhouse tonight. I don't know, just sitting around watching television with the ice bags on. And I asked him how he was. He said, I'm fine. I'm ready. So I felt good after last night's game, and I'm ready to go again.
Wilson is hitless in this series. Some decent numbers for him, as you saw during the season. And the count is full.
You know, every time you look at a kid like a Dan Wilson and what he's done offensively for you, Bob, it's always a plus, depending on what he does as a receiver. I mean, if this guy can catch and handle a pitching staff and throw out a runner for you once in a while, he's a plus and an asset to a club.
In the air, right side, Sorrento back from first. Near the line, he makes the catch, and we go downstairs. Jim Gray is with Roberto Alomar of the Blue Jays. Jimmy.
All right, thank you, Bob. Roberto, how is Sandy? He's not playing tonight. How's his neck?
Well, I think Sandy feels a little bit sore. His neck's a little bit stiff, and he decided not to play. I think he did the right. He got the right decision and let Tony Pena play the game today.
Will he be all right for tomorrow?
He'll be okay even tonight if the game go longer. we just want a day off and play tomorrow.
How much does it bother Sandy that you have 2 rings and he doesn't have any?
Well, I think he's happy, and you know, I got 2 rings. I'm real happy for myself, and I'm real happy for him. He got the chance to win 1 this year, and I wish him the best.
Finally, you're a free agent. Anybody looking for a second baseman? Here's a good one right here, but where would you like to go?
Well, I'm going to leave the doors open. I'm not going to say where I want to go, but I'm going to leave the doors open, and I'm just going to try the market.
Roberto, thanks for taking the time. Enjoy the series.
Thank you. Bob?
All things considered, there are some good ones in both leagues, but when you consider the glove, the bat, the legs, I go with Robbie Alomar now as the top second baseman in the game.
Yeah, I think most baseball people would go along with that, Bob. A switch hitter with a little power, got speed, and as he said, I mean, this has been common knowledge for a long time. Alomar wants to test the free market, and not for anything cheap either. I mean, he's going big time.
There was some talk late in the year about the possibility of his coming here. They'd move Baerga to third base, then figure out what to do with either Tomey or Sorrento in terms of a trade. 2-2 to Coleman. But that would further swell a payroll that already figures to grow. They've got an option in 1996 on Albert Bell at $5.5 million. They'll pick up that option. But after that, what will it take to sign him and all these other guys having tremendous years to hold this club together and do it with some fiscal sanity is going to be a challenge for the GM, John Hart. The 2-2 pitch. Check swing foul.
And I think Alomar, in looking for a multi-year deal, a 3-year deal in excess of $20 million or $24 million, which is not cheap, as you said, Bob. But he's an asset to any club, as you said. Probably baseball's best overall second baseman. Going to be interesting to see what happens with Alomar over the offseason.
Another 2-2 pitch from Hill to Coleman. Down low.
It'd be great to have him playing here in Cleveland with his brother Sandy. And you know, we talked about Junior and Senior Griffey last night. Wouldn't it be something if Sandy Senior comes back and plays just 1 game for those guys? At about 50?
Well, if they do that, they might as well give Minnie Minoso another at-bat.
Don't say that. He may be back.
And a walk for Coleman. Well, we have a chance. The creator of Magnum P.I. and Quantum Leap is back with another big hit. NBC's new drama, Jag. You'll want to check out the special episode of Jag coming up tonight, right after the game on NBC. Viewers on the West Coast, of course, check your local listings. Well, Joey Cora, who has made some eye-popping plays in the postseason, was quick to say that Roberto Alomar is his idol. He, like the Alomars from Puerto Rico. Pena throws in behind Coleman, and Sorrento has to pick it up on a hop.
Here's that last little replay, and the throw by Pena in the dirt. 20 years ago, when he had a lot better arm, that was his strong suit. I mean, throwing from his knees and throwing from the crouch, never getting up. A la Benito Santiago now. But Pena at one time had one of the better throwing arms in baseball and a good receiver. I had never seen anybody catch the way he did, squatting on his backside with his leg extended, one leg underneath his backside and the other extended out away from him. I mean, I always thought that was a dangerous way to try and catch in case of a foul ball. I mean, who are we trying to trick, you know? But he said it was comfortable.
There were certain areas of vulnerability, though.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I know that.
Back in those days with the Pirates, when he was one of the best day-in, day-out catchers in the National League. 1 out, 1 on, and the 1-1 pitch with Coleman running. A bouncing ball to Sorrento. Takes the play at first, and Vince is in scoring position with 2 out.
Center fielder number 24, Ken Griffey Jr.
Mariner bench looking for a chance and a reason to come to life here. Behind 4-0 in the third. After watching Ken Griffey Jr. hit 5 home runs in the 5-game series against the Yankees, Reggie Jackson said with another expansion coming and Griffey's still in the prime of his career when it happens. He could hit 60. Especially if he stays in the American League where there are more small hitters parks. Could threaten the records of Ruth and Maris. First base is open. The slumping Edgar Martinez is on deck. But the Indians lead 4-0.
After watching what he did last year, Bob, in the strike-shortened season, there's no doubt in my mind that there is always that possibility with this guy.
Well, he had 45 in '93 in a full season. 40 last year prior to the strike.
That was August the 12th, and I mean, he was really on a tear.
3-0 now.
Tony Pena questioning that last call by Dale Ford, a fastball pretty close. It looked like it had the corner maybe about knee-high, and Tony Pena asking Dale Ford, too late to take a second look. It was close.
He walks him on 4 pitches. The Braves trying to complete the sweep behind Avery, leading 1-0 in the 4th. Edgar Martinez now. He had an infield single to snap an 0-for-11 series drought his first time up. Away from second. Griffey a lead at first. And the Mariners looking for a timely hit to get back into this one. Out in front, 0-1.
There's another breaking ball. A good pitch to hit for Martinez, Bob, and he's out in front of everything. I mean, he's trying to pull everything. There's a ball that he normally drives to right or right center. Here's a ball out of the way. See how he's out on his front foot? Everything is gone already. And again, trying to pull everything. He hit that little tapper back in the second for an infield single. Those are pitches that he hits hard and hits the other way.
Hill throws in behind Coleman, with Vizquel trying to sneak in behind Vince.
Omar Vizquel in behind Coleman to take that throw.
With 2 outs and Griffey running at the crack of the bat, a ball in the gap would produce 2 here. Here goes Coleman as they try to double steal the throw down to third, not in time. Trailing 4-0. And with their cleanup man at the plate and 2 outs, the Mariners turn aggressive. A double steal and now a single would cut the lead in half.
There it is again. There's Coleman's jump and run to third. A good throw by Pena, but late. He had a good jump. Got in there. There's a perfect throw with Tomei covering. And the third base umpire, Davey Phillips, right on the play.
The 0-2 pitch. When the Mariners trailed Game 4 of the division series 5-0, it was Martinez who brought them roaring back. The 3-run homer and then the grand slam. They trailed this one 4-0. And a bouncing ball to second. Baerga boots it. Does he have time to recover? Yes, he does. Tim McClellan taking his own sweet time with the call, but they leave 2, and Cleveland still holds the 4-0 lead. It's fair to say that while Martinez is not dogging it down the line here, he is not running full tilt until he sees Baerga beat the ball. Then he picks up the pace, but he can't beat it out. Should have said Baerga booting the ball. Watch.
You're right. Now you see him pick it up. Baerga just booted the ball, and then Martinez picks up the steam. They threw him out by about a half a step. And he's not one of those guys that's, you know, a lack of hustle. He busts his way all the time, but on that particular AB, he thought he hit an easy ground ball out.
If he's running as hard as he can, from the moment he hits it, he's safe.
And it's a run.
0-2 to Baerga.
You know, it's funny. of all the pitches that he's seen tonight, he finally gets a ball that he can pull or hit to the gap in left center. And he's been seeing so many pitches away, Bob. He tried to drive an inside pitch to the right side, hit that weak little ground ball.
Baerga, Murray, and Thome in the bottom of the third. It's been rough going for Andy Bennis. 3 in the first, another in the second. Slow ground ball, left side, Flowers charging. He doesn't have a chance. Even had he picked it up cleanly, Baerga had it beaten for a leadoff single. As Murray steps in, we check with Hannah Storm.
Bob, with the Braves leading 1-0 in the top of the fourth, the Reds had runners on first and second, no outs, but Reggie Sanders, a broken bat grounder into the double play. Sanders just 2 for 14 for the series. Meanwhile, Atlanta's Steve Avery is cruising, 4 strikeouts and 1 hit through 4. Bob?
Hannah, thank you. The woes of Reggie Sanders, reminiscent of the World Series that Eddie Murray suffered through in 1979 as a fine young player. He pops this one back to third. Flowers will have enough room to make the catch. Or you think of Gil Hodges in that World Series in the early 50s where he didn't get a single base hit. Or Mo Vaughn and Jose Canseco in the division series this year against Cleveland. Sometimes even the best can come up empty.
Now, when you look at a guy like Murray and up there tonight, left-handed against the right-handed offerings of Bennis. I mean, when he hit the home run back in the first inning, Bob, it was a ball that he was sitting on, got it, and hit it out of here. A hanging slider, it looked like. And there was no doubt about it. You know, when you watch him on an everyday basis for the Orioles, I think you really had to appreciate him. I mean, everybody talked about his hitting. Murray, a pretty decent first baseman, too. And for all of those years, a both-way player, defense and with big offensive numbers, now a DH, and from time to time he does play at first.
And will play some at first if they make the World Series. A very slight drizzle now at Jacobs Field. Now, I think of Dave Winfield, then in the prime of his career, 1981 World Series, went 1 for 22. Remember when he finally got a base hit against the Dodgers, he jokingly called for the ball for his trophy case. Check at third base, and Dave Phillips won't give him the call. 2-1.
It's amazing how many times great players have come to postseason play and ended up with some very bad numbers. As you check this check swing by Jim Thome, that's the kind of a check swing that Thome injured himself on against Randy Johnson a couple of years ago, and he's never played against Johnson since. That was a spring training game.
Baerga chased back to first. You notice Thome has that distinctive way of getting set in the batter's box. He got it from watching Robert Redford as Roy Hobbs in The Natural. If he hits one into the lights and they explode, I'm leaving. We're all out of here. 3-1.
Now, if he hits one in the lights here, I think everybody would leave this ballpark. That's only about 1,000.
Yeah. Well, you know, Roy Hobbs played in those older ballparks where the third deck wasn't quite as quite as recessed from the field.
Car headlights up there.
That's out of play, 3-2. I wasn't speaking literally, you.
Oh, I know that.
Just talking
You
about
never
a movie.
do to me.
Yeah,
I know that.
Just talking about a movie.
Absolutely.
Raining a little bit harder now.
Well, it rained here last night very heavily, rained throughout the afternoon, and there was some doubt as to whether this game might get started on time, but they said from now on this stuff should be on and off all evening long.
Indians leading at 4-0. The runner going, and Thome with a drive the opposite way. This one is on its way and out of here. don't explode, but the fireworks display is something Robert Redford could relate to. Tomey has that opposite field power. He hits many home runs that way.
There's a high fastball from Bennis, and Tomey hit it out of here the other way. He got it all. 6-0 now. Indians. Bennis knew it. High fastball, and he knew it.
Ramirez now, and a swing and a miss.
Somebody was talking yesterday, I believe one of the Seattle pitchers, it might have been Tim Belcher, who was talking about this park being a pitcher's park, Bob. I think this is a hitter's park. The ball carries here very well. And despite that high wall in left that runs from the foul line all the way into deepest left center, they go out of here in left very, very well to center and to right. I think this is a hitter's park.
Bennis' Seattle record of 7-2 misleading. In his 12 starts, they average better than 7 runs a game for him.
Well, they're going to need 7 tonight to keep him in there.
That's how you get to be 7-2 when your ERA is nearly 6. In fact, his ERA of 5.86 is the highest of any pitcher with a one-loss record as many as 5 games over 500 in the history of the American League. And Ramirez whacks one through the hole for a one-out single. Piniella has seen enough. Bennis is done. Had absolutely nothing tonight. Murray and Tomey get to him for 2-run homers. He leaves trailing 6-0, and we're back after this from your local station. Last year, and the Mariners picked him up. First man who faces Sorrento. Still only 1 out in the 3rd. 3 in the 1st, 1 in the 2nd, 2 more here in the 3rd for the Indians, trying to get even in the series and leading game 4, 6-0. They're too good to ever be counted out. But things did not look so good for them as this game began. Down 2-1, having lost a game where they got Randy Johnson out of there, where Nagy pitched on just about even terms with Johnson, where they got into extra innings, where you have to believe that their bullpen is deeper than Seattle's. They hadn't lost an extra inning game all year. They were 14-0 in extra innings before last night. That game slipped away on their home field, and they fell behind 2-1. Then they arrive at the park tonight to find out Albert Bell can't make it, Sandy Alomar can't make it. Even Alomar's replacement, Tony Pena, has contributed. He was in on the run they scored in the 2nd. Now they lead 6-0, and tomorrow night's pitching pairing is favorable to them. Hershiser against Fazio.
And the Indians this year have not lost a game in which they have led by as many as 6. So it's a big night for Cleveland. And again, you know, Piniella, as we said yesterday, talked about, you know, getting back to Seattle. 1 win in this series gets us back home. And they had that and may get out of here 2-2.
Sorrento lifts one to left, but this one will not make the track. Coleman camped under it.
2-2, and as you said tomorrow with Hershiser going, Bob, I mean, he pitched a magnificent game in Seattle. And in difference to what Johnson does, Randy Johnson, you know, we talked about his power and a great slider and everything else. Hershiser, another one of those guys, the veteran that he is, that can keep you in a ball game, and got the great sinker, good fastball, the slider to go along with it.
You know, if this thing should go 7, and who's to say it won't the way it's shaping up, Hershiser might be ready to pitch a couple of innings on 2 days rest.
Oh, I think
in the 7th game.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's everybody then, Bob, no matter who you are. Starter, middle guy, closer, whatever. It's everybody then.
Pena, always ready to pop a few buttons on his uniform shirt with a swing. Shortening up on the swing is something that's kind of a foreign concept to Tony.
Air it out. There's a high bat. I mean, when you're sitting on a certain pitch and you're looking and you get it, you go to hack it. I mean, no matter where it is, if you're sitting and you're trying, you're going, you let it rip.
A couple of years ago with the Red Sox, he hit under 200, but he still went up there just wailing away.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're sitting on a certain pitch, if you're looking breaking ball and you get the breaking ball and it's down low and away, you're still going. I mean, it may be out of the strike zone, but you're so geared up. You get the pitch that you're looking for, you're so geared up, you go.
Tony singled and scored in the second. Looks to bunt. Pushed it a little too hard toward the mound, and Wells will throw him out. Not a bad idea with Flowers deep at third. 2 more runs on the Tommy Homer. Back after this from your local station. Both the hat and the gentleman wearing it appear to be lit up tonight.
I'll tell you, with this rain falling, we may see his whole head light up here in a minute.
Well, the Indians lit Andy Bettis up as we carry this metaphor to its woeful conclusion, and they lead 6-0 after 3.
The guy's got that thing hooked up to a truck battery. We'll see him really go.
Hill to work in the 4th, and Tino Martinez hits one up the middle. Baerga, even had he been able to flag it down, would not have been able to throw Martinez out. So a leadoff single. You know, I'm glad you find amusement in these things.
I do. No, I'm picturing that guy as you look at this base hit to center by Tino Martinez. I mean, it's 6-0. You got to think about something else. Can't you just see that guy getting out of his car and hauling some big truck battery in here? Okay, honey, hook me up. I'm ready.
Buhner to the plate. 2 homers last night, 3 in the series. A walk his first time up tonight. Foul back into the seats. The rain, which was coming down pretty hard just a short while ago, has subsided. Some of the fans had moved back from the lower seats to get under cover, but they've returned now. Quickly 0-2 to Buhner. Well, having our crew in the blimp is good for more than just pretty pictures. They tell us from the blimp that radar says no more rain coming at us in the next hour or so. One and two. Two balls and 2 strikes to Buhner. A breaking ball from Nagy was to Buhner's liking in the second inning last night, and he pulled it over the wall and left. In the 11th, Plunk threw him 2 straight fastballs. One got ahead of him 0-1, and in the second, he took out to right center for the game-winning homer. A drive down the left field line that will get down for extra bases. Chased into the corner by Kirby. Martinez stops at third, and Buhner has a double, second and third with nobody out.
Now, you talked about the breaking ball that he hit against Nagy last night for the home run. This is another high breaking ball from Hill. Watch it. There it is, a hanger about belt high, and Buhner jumped all over it. He picks up a double, second and third, and nobody out. And Mark Wiley now is out to talk with Kenny Hill. You know, I talked earlier about the Indians having not lost a game, Bob, when they led by 6 or more this year. Seattle has come from behind when they've trailed by 6 once. Back in September on the 22nd against the Oakland A's as Mark Wiley talks things over with Pena and Hill. Mariners with a shot here to get on the board.
Bit of business to take care of. This 1995 League Championship Series game is brought to you by Chevrolet. The cars and trucks 36 million people depend on every day. Genuine Chevrolet, Texaco Clean System 3 gasolines, and Bud Light. If you want great taste that won't fill you up and never lets you down, make it a Bud Light. So now here's Flowers. Struck out his first time up. Mariners left 2 men on in both the second and the third. They have 2 on with nobody out here and strike 1 to Blowers. Soho on deck, and then the catcher, Dan Wilson. Martinez away from third. Buhner, who doubled, would lead off second. Swing and a miss, and Pena was going one way as the pitch went the other.
I don't know if Tony got crossed up on that pitch or not, but he was moving inside as if to take a fastball. Watch this. And it was a fastball, but down low and away from Hill. Check swing striker is swinging. I tell you, it's not an easy pitch to catch that way, the way he did, Bob.
Tony's already had an interesting and adventurous night.
Talk about a guy who keeps a club loose. Tony Pena is one of those for sure. He just said, let me run through another set for you. I don't remember what I called, and I want to make sure you do.
Can you pick up his signs?
This should be a spinner.
1 and 2. See if we can peer in here.
Well, with the runner at second, they use a multiple set of signs. 2, 1, 2, 1, 6. Could be a splitter.
Fouled off.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, fast slider, splitter, and a change. 4, 5 fastball, 6 breaking ball. That looked like a splitter.
Well, if we can pick it up from the center field camera, what's to prevent Buhner from picking that up from second base?
See, those guys from the blimp pick that up.
That's my question.
That's really something.
1-2 pitch. Pena blocks that.
You know, despite the fact that there are a number of different sets of signs, as you look at that last graph by Tony Pena, no matter how many different sets you use, Bob, there are always runners at second base who can pick them up, and those guys can really help a hitter from time to time. There are times when they mess you up, too. I mean, you really want to make sure if you're sending signs to a hitter from second base, you got the right thing going.
Pena and Hill have worked together before. They were both with the Cardinals in the late 80s. Pena caught Hill many times. Both starters tonight came from teams splitter grip, came from teams that were not contenders to better ball clubs and on to postseason play. Bennis from San Diego to Seattle, Hill from the Cardinals to the Indians. Called strike 3.
That may have been a change of pace. There it is right there. Off speed it appeared, and Blowers looking right on the outside corner. The concentration of Hill, it was a splitter. It was off speed. You know, it really didn't take that much of a dive, Bob. It was off speed, but right on the outside corner.
Hill notches his 3rd strikeout. And here's Soho.
You know, in getting back to catcher signs, Bob, and runners out at second base, I know, having watched the Brewers for all those years with Yount and Molitor and Gander and people like that, the big guys, Gorman, Thomas, and Cooper, and all those other people in those years, they wanted to know. I mean, if you were out there and you had the signs, they wanted it. But again, make sure you got it right. I mean, make sure you're giving me the right one.
Braves and Reds moving along a bit more briskly than this game. Braves continue to lead 1-0. Buhner at second base after the double. Martinez at third. 6-0 Cleveland, but with a couple of timely hits it could be a game. Martinez grounded out with runners at second and third to end the third. A base hit here could produce 2 runs. Soho can just about shake hands with Sam Perlazzo in the third base coaching box on most of these swings.
You know, he bails, Bob. He goes in the bucket. There is Sam Palazzo, the third base coach. He goes in the bucket. But watch where his bat is. I mean, if we have a shot of this last swing by Soho, watch where his bat is. Watch how the extension he gets. There he is. I mean, that pitch is around the outside corner. Despite the fact that he goes in the bucket, he still gets enough on it to get a piece of it.
A good time for a strikeout if Hill can get it, and he does. Soho with some brief disagreement for Dale Ford, but given what we talked about, as far off the plate as he is, the best he can hope to do with a perfect pitch like that on the outside corner is maybe get the end of the bat on it and foul it. In this case, he doesn't pull the trigger and he's gone.
He didn't pull the trigger on a pitch that was close. It may have been off the outside corner, but again, Ford's been there all night long. And Soho questioning the call. He just said that ball was outside. That's what he told Dale Ford. And again, it may have been outside. It was close.
Wilson 0 for 10 in the series. And a called strike.
Now, that was a strike on the corner, but again, Dale Ford and any umpire, I don't care who they are, if they're going to work that way and work off the corner just a little bit. I mean, you've got to make up your mind. But as you said, with Soho going into the bucket the way he does, stepping toward third, just to foul a pitch like that off is tough. But that's a heck of a pitch. Was just as good as the pitch that he called Soho out on. But this is a ball now. And again, I'm not getting on Dale Ford. That, to me, looked like a pretty decent pitch, too. I'm not getting on him. That's just the way they work. I know they can't be perfect. Everybody works differently behind the plate. Everybody has their own strike zone.
2-1. All right, here's the previous pitch, which was called a strike.
All right,
same angle.
Here's the one on Soho. And look where Pena's setting up. Now, that ball appears to be a little bit outside, to me anyway. Ford likes it for a strikeout. That was on Soho.
The 2-1 pitch to Wilson. Slow roller right side. Here will have to cover. Sorrento gets it to him. Well, Bennett's pitching certainly didn't help the Mariners, but a lack of timely hitting hasn't helped either. They lead 2 more. With a strike.
No balls, 1 strike to Mike Devereaux. Bases loaded, 2 out. Strike 2 call. Atlanta with a run in the bottom of the third leads it 1-0, looking for more. Leading this National League Championship Series 3 games to none, and looking to put the cap on it and head to the World Series. 0-2 pitch to Devereaux. Got him swinging. So Pete Shorrock comes back and knocks the Braves down.
So we checked in with Greg Gumbel and Joe Morgan briefly. Bob Costas and Bob Uecker back at Jacobs Field. The Mariners, in addition to their pitching woes, have left 6 men on base. 2 in the second, third, and fourth. And in the fourth inning, they had second and third with nobody out and couldn't get anyone across.
And Hill gets the big strikeouts to Flowers and Soho, both on call third strikes, and then gets Wilson on the easy ground ball, Bob. Heck of a job by Hill.
You know, I've done this several times the last couple of nights. Why don't you do it?
All right. Well, the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company has dispatched its blimp Spirit of Akron to help with our coverage of tonight's game. Goodyear blimp is based just 50 miles south of Cleveland. You know where it is?
In Akron.
Akron, Ohio.
There you go.
You got it.
Harry Doyle, voice of the Cleveland Indians in the Major League movies, could not have done it any better. The Mariners have made a change behind the plate. That's Chris Widger. Dan Wilson made the last out. in the top of the fourth didn't appear to be hurt. Maybe they just want to give Widger a couple of at-bats, trailing 6-0, and a chance to take a few innings behind the plate.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. I think it's a good move by Lou Piniella. And again, this is not a giveaway game by any means yet for Seattle. They're down 6 and had a chance to get on the board in the fourth, as you said. Yeah, it's not a bad idea, and a good night for a guy like Widger to get some play during the postseason. You know, if there's a looser manager around baseball, I mean, at this time of the year, anytime you're in the postseason, I don't think I've seen anybody, and I've been there myself, as is Lou Piniella. I mean, tonight in the clubhouse, easy going and no problems with the club, and happy with their position at 2-1 into tonight's action.
Wayne Kirby starts it in the bottom of the fourth, and Widger looks like he'll get a chance right away. There's the first out. Seattle trails 6-0, but with a couple of timely singles, that's all. It could be 6-4. Martinez left runners at second and third. Edgar Martinez in the third, and they had 3 straight chances, second and third, and nobody out in the fourth, and couldn't get anybody home. I believe that tonight is Midnight Madness night on college campuses as they begin basketball practice in all those basketball mad locations, which brings us to the subject of Kenny Lofton's basketball career, and we'll show it to you, at least a tiny snippet of it, after this first pitch from Bob Wells, which is outside. Lofton was a pretty good guard for Lute Olson at the University of Arizona, played on that team that made the Final Four in 1988. Pretty good elevation to get up for the dunk.
He's not all that big of a man, but yeah, he got up there very well. He can jam.
Lofton singled, stole a base, scored his first time up, had a sacrifice fly his second time. Hit hard, but right at Soho, who throws him out at first.
Shortstop, number 13,
and now Omar Vizquel, walked and struck out. Still doesn't have a hit in this series. But his glove alone, I mean, this guy could hit 210 for the year, and you play him every day. As it is, he hit 266. Came through with a lot of timely hits, and as we mentioned last night, it's a good butter. Gets the guy home from third with less than 2 outs, moves the runner up at second base on the ground ball to the right side when he needs to. Seldom strikes out.
He's one of those guys every once in a while will pop one for you. They play him as a hitter to hit the other way towards left. But as you just saw there, anything off speed, a breaking ball once in a while or something inside, or if he's sitting fastball, he'll try and jerk one once in a while.
And he stole 29 bases, too. A ball and 2 strikes. 2 outs, nobody out in the fourth. 6-0 Cleveland. Bob Wells in relief of Andy Bennis. A called strike 3. And Wells retires the Indians in order in the fourth. Still 6-0 Cleveland. Uke, last night we were talking about all the plays that Omar Vizquel makes bare-handed. We asked him about it, and here's what he had to say.
I don't think I'm afraid to catch it bare-handed. You know, I think that's the main thing. If I don't have a chance to get somebody out in first base, I just try to make the impossible play. And sometimes, just to be that aggressive, I make a lot of errors because that reason. You know, I get to a lot of balls, and I try to make sometimes unbelievable plays. But I'm not afraid to catch the ball bare-handed. I think I'm good at it, and why not?
Well, John Gonzalez, our producer, could probably interpret that sign for us. What did it say, Gonzo? He is the best in the world. And right now, that might be true, at least with the glove.
Yeah, he's called the best in the American League anyway by players here.
You know, he said that sometimes he'll pick up an error because he tries to make a spectacular play. His error total for the year was only 9. And when you consider how many great diving plays he makes in the hole, how often he throws from the outfield grass where you risk an error, that's a remarkably low error total.
I don't think he thinks they're spectacular plays either, Bob. I mean, he does it as a routine. He knows he can only make it one way. I mean, those barehanded plays, if you go glove, then hand, and make the throw, there's no chance to get about it. And he takes that chance, and he's very good at it.
Strong Latin American flavor to this series. Tomey was in close in the perfect place to throw Coleman out for the first out. Just look at the Indians roster. Baerga and Alomar from Puerto Rico. Ramirez, Mesa, Pena, and Tavares from the Dominican Republic.
Little easy grab by Jim Tomey on a bouncer hit by Coleman.
Espinosa, who played at third for Tomey last night, and Vizquel are from Venezuela. Dennis Martinez from Nicaragua. Joey Cora of the Mariners at the plate from Puerto Rico. Alex Diaz, Alex Rodriguez, Edgar Antino Martinez, Luis Sojo, Felix Fermin. Pinella has some Hispanic background. Bobby Cuellar and Sam Mejias on his coaching staff.
You know, I talked with Vizquel before the game tonight. There you see Espinosa. And that's what we were talking about. I asked Vizquel, I said, what did you tell Espinosa last night after he kicked that ball? And he said, I went and told him to relax a little bit. He's normally a shortstop. He plays better at shortstop. I told him, I said, hey, play the way you do at shortstop. Nice and easy. Let the ball come to you. Nice, soft hand. He said, you're jabbing at the ball. He says he does that when he plays at third and at second base, out of position.
Hill behind Cora, 3-1 with Griffey next. Ball strike, full count. And the fans begin to roar, as they do in Seattle. In the air, center field, Kenny Lofton. Before Griffey bats, we go to Hannah Storm. Hannah.
Bob, the Reds continue to be plagued by an absence of clutch hitting. This is Ron Gant, Barry Larkin on first, and Steve Avery gets Gant to head into a double play to end the inning. Meanwhile, Avery is cruising his first postseason appearance, a 2-hitter through 6 with 6 strikeouts, Bob.
And how many double plays have the Reds hit into in big situations in this series?
Well, I'm telling you, that's been unbelievable. And the ability of Sanders.
It's going to be an easy inning for Hill on the first pitch. Griffey pops to Vizquel. He sets them down 1-2-3 after the Mariners had stranded 2 in each of the previous 3 innings. I don't know what happened to the guy with the tom-tom. He used to serve as the mascot, but now we have the costume creature Slider. I wonder if the Mariner Moose will be off the disabled list when we get up to the Kingdom for Game 6, assuming there is a 6th game, as now appears likely, on Tuesday. You know, he ran into the fence during the division series with the Yankees and broke his ankle. There's the guy with the tom-tom. There you go.
All the time. He doesn't miss, ever.
No. But they had to call the mascot veterinarian, I guess, to try to get the Moose ready for the rest of the postseason. Tomorrow we continue, 7 Eastern time. Some of you will see the Braves and Reds if that series is extended. If not, if the Braves should win tonight and complete the sweep, the whole country will join us here at Jacobs Field. Chris Blasio for Seattle. And Oral Hershiser in a switch from Dennis Martinez on 3 days rest. He's been positively brilliant this year and throughout his career in League Championship Series and World Series play as a 6-0 postseason record. Hershiser will go for Cleveland. The Indians will use Martinez in Game 6 if it gets there. And a victory by Cleveland tonight assures that we go at least 6. Meanwhile, the umpires don't see it. Slider is on the field. Baerga lines to left. It's going to drop for a hit. The mascot fell out of the stands, and he is hobbling toward the bullpen. No sooner had we mentioned the injury to the Mariner Moose than Slider took a tumble, and he was literally on the warning track as Wells pitched to Baerga.
He's really hurt, Bob. He's laying down out near the Indian bullpen. He fell off. I saw him fall off the area out there in right center. He was up on top of the wall out there doing his dance between innings and then fell. He actually took a dive. He slipped, it appeared. As we said earlier, it's been raining here. And the top of that wall in the dugout areas, you can see a little water on top, and he fell. He fell onto the playing field, and nobody saw him. And as you said, hobbling very bad. He's hurt. He's being attended to out there right now.
These mascots are dropping like flies. The 1-0 pitch coming to Eddie Murray. He is homered and fouled out. Julian Tavares doubling as right-handed reliever and paramedic taking a look at Slider. And obviously we hope he's not too badly hurt, but what if Baerga had hit a ball to right center field, the mascot is on the field, and you've got a couple of outfielders converging on the ball? How bizarre would that have been?
He tried. He tried to let somebody know that he was laying out there immediately, but it was too late. Wells was set to work, and he's okay, and hopefully he is.
You know, when you try to cry for help, though, that giant head kind of muffles the sound. You don't get the greatest projection when you're wearing a mascot head.
Well, he got to his feet right away, but as you said, was hobbling very badly, and may have turned an ankle, and hopefully that's all if he did.
So first they lose Albert Bell with a sprained ankle. Now Slider goes down. And still Dave Winfield hasn't been activated. The 2-2 to Murray. Foul back.
You'd never think they'd ask Winfield to.
No.
Nah. Say, Dave, would you mind putting this on and helping us out just for tonight? Nah. No way.
Braves maintaining that 1-0 lead. There's one of the great players of this generation.
And what a guy.
Just tacked on 5 years after he finally calls it quits, and then put up the plaque at Cooperstown. 3-2. Turned 44 last week. Bad back, rotator cuff. Only a handful of at-bats this year. At age 39, meanwhile, Eddie Murray continues to be one of the most dangerous hitters in the league. Hit .323 with 21 homers, has 2 postseason homers, the runner going. And Baerga returns as Murray spoils that one. Slider is on his feet. A little embarrassed.
I don't know if he's on his feet. He's on a chair. Can he walk or not? That's the problem. He said he's okay. He indicated that he was all right anyway. He may have turned to knee. Well, Tavares still working on him.
And the 3-2 once again. This time the runner not going, and Murray spoils another one. Watching back in Seattle, we know that the Mariner Moose can empathize. Meanwhile, in no mood for humor of any kind, trailing 6-0. Baerga held by Martinez. Nobody out, bottom of the 5th. Tomey on deck. And Wells steps off. Both Bennis and Hill, the starters tonight, are deliberate workers. Wells isn't exactly hurrying things along either. Baerga's not going, and Murray fouls another one into the seats.
Murray twice now with 3-2 fastballs and fouled them off to the left side. Nobody out, a runner on. See if Wells goes to a breaking ball here.
in the cleanup spot, up from number 5 in the absence of Bell. Not going, and another foul ball.
When he hit the home run back in the first inning against Andy Bennis, looked like he hit a slider about belt high that didn't break all that much and hit it out of here in deep right center.
Tomey, who's on deck, had a 2-run shot to left in the 3rd. Andy Bennis didn't survive that inning. It's Wells now. Baerga is running. Here's a long drive to right that has home run distance, but it's foul. Wells got that one upstairs, and Eddie turned on it a little too much.
High fastball that time, almost letter high. And Murray right on it and pulls it foul by about 25 to 30 feet.
Baerga takes off, and Murray lifts one to left field. Coleman coming in, going out from 3rd is Blowers, and the ball drops just foul. I understand that our intrepid reporter, Jim Gray, has lined up an interview with Slider. Now, I don't know if Slider actually speaks or communicates in pantomime, as many of these mascots do. This will be a test for Jim Gray, and after Eddie Murray's at-bat is complete, we'll check with him. This is the kind of thing that nets a reporter an Emmy Award or a Peabody. If you can come through in a crisis like this and bring the American public the type of information they demand in a timely fashion, you take a step up in the pantheon of broadcasters. Jim Gray is equal to the task. Eddie Murray's been up there about half an hour, and he'll stay up there. We can't wait any longer. Jim Gray, go.
Well, Slider fell off the top of the bullpen into center field there. He has twisted his right knee, and he is out for the rest of the game. Slider, will you be back tomorrow, and are you all right? Slider does not talk, by the way. He can only give us hand signals. The knee is bad. You're hurt. You will not be back today. Will you need surgery? Doesn't know. Doesn't know if he'll need surgery, but he is all right. He is able to communicate. Back to you, Bob.
And Eddie Murray finally draws a walk. Well, all we can say is the Slider is questionable. We really do not have a definitive report here. Let's take a look back at how 4 of the 6 Indian runs have been accounted for. This is in the 1st inning. A run already home and a man aboard. And Murray drives the Andy Bennis slider out of here to make it 3-0. And now Tomey goes the opposite way in the 3rd inning for a high fly ball homer over the head of Vince Coleman and into the seats and left. That made it 6-0, and one batter later, after a Ramirez single, Bennis was done. 2 on, nobody out as Tomey stands in. Baerga at second, Murray at first. In his brief experience against Wells, Tomey is 2 for 2, plus 2 walks.
Had a good fastball that time on Tomey, and he tried to pull it. He had a good cut and fouled it back. There's that last fastball by Wells. I mean, right there. And Jim Tomey with a heck of a cut and fouled it back. I like watching this guy play. I really do. Jim Tomey. I like his style. He plays hard all the time and enjoys the game. Talk about this lineup for Cleveland with Tomey and Sorrento down at the bottom of the order with 25 home runs apiece for the year. Well, this guy is one of those kids that came up as a third baseman, Bob, and a little raw, and I mean, ground ball after ground ball during batting practice and infield practice. One of those guys knock him down, pick it up, and throw him out. He's getting better all the time.
Buddy Bell has really worked with him.
One of baseball's best ever. Buddy Bell, third baseman. Standing on the top step of the Indian dugout right now.
Called strike 3. So Tomey becomes the first out in the Indian fifth.
This is off speed from Wells. Off speed around the outside and right there. Bob Dehigh and the strikeout.
Which brings us to Ramirez, who has struck out and singled. Product of George Washington High School in the Bronx. Might be, as we mentioned in the first series against the Red Sox, the best hitter to come out of New York City since Rod Carew. Sean Dunston is a product of a New York City high school, as I recall. But really, there haven't been many in the class that Ramirez has a chance to enter, if any, since Rod Carew.
You know, we were talking with Tim Belcher before the game tonight about Ramirez. And he said, this guy is really something. I mean, from time to time, you say to yourself, you make a good pitch on him, and he gets the bat on the ball some way and drives it very hard. He's got great natural ability. You know, a lot of guys say, well, you go up there, you keep books and you keep programs and you keep pitch counts on certain hitters, a la Albert Bell. This guy doesn't do that. I mean, he's got a lot of a natural ability. And again, working with Charlie Manuel, who's the Indians hitting coach, I mean, this guy is going to get better and better and better. He's a strong kid with power. The last pitch that he had to cut at. And a guy who's getting better and better in the outfield, as Mike Hargrove said. He platoons from time to time or puts him Kirby defensively late in some games. But he said that's just a matter of time before this guy is in there on a daily basis all night long, or all day long for that matter.
Wells brings the 0-2 pitch home. Ramirez is just 23, and quite frankly, there are times when his head isn't completely in the game. A few times this year, he's run toward first after ball 3. And a couple of other times he's remained at the plate, thinking the count was still alive after ball 4. Baer gets second. Murray at first, one down in the 5th. Indians trying to add to a 6-0 lead. They chased Bennis in the 3rd, and when the Mariners have had their cracks at Kent Hill, they haven't been able to come through. They've left 6. 2-2.
You know, the thing about Ramirez is the fact that he's got such power the other way, too. As you look at the Braves, still on top of the Reds, 1-0. But, I mean, he's got great power the other way. And off-speed stuff, he can pull. Line drive hitter from time to time. He's got a strong arm. Kirby, as I said, is the faster of the two, and he is put into the game in late innings.
Sky-high pop back of the plate. Widger with room, and he makes the catch. Looking at that Atlanta score, if in fact the 1-0 lead holds up, and now they're in the 7th, and they complete the sweep, it'll be 4 and out for Cincinnati, but 3 of the 4 games will be very close. 2 extra inning games in Cincinnati and a 1-0 game going here. The only game in which the Braves had breathing room was the one Maddox won last night.
It's hard to believe that Cincinnati, the Reds, have hit into so many double plays in that series in situations where they've had opportunities to score runs, where double plays have ended an inning for them, where they could have gotten back or jumped into the lead, and it hasn't happened.
Wells, I would suspect, will be in there for a while, trailing 6-0. If he pitches decently at all, Piniella would like him to save the rest of that bullpen.
He hasn't done all that badly since he came on back in the 3rd. He retired Soretto and Pena to end that. After the Indians hit Bennis for a couple of more, worked a 1, 2, 3, 4. Gave up a single and a walk here. And with 2 outs, can get out of it.
bases.
Well, here again you have the 3-0 situation. Sorrento. You have to have a hit tonight. You let him go 3-0 here, 6-0.
Fans anticipate that he might. But it's outside and high for ball 4. The bases are loaded for Tony Pena. Before he steps in, we go to Hannah Storm. Hannah.
Reggie Sanders continuing to struggle in Atlanta, leading off the second against reliever Greg McMichael. McMichael strikes him out. McMichael pitching a perfect 7th. Sanders 2 for 15 in the series with 9 strikeouts. And Bob, the Braves just 6 outs away from a trip to the World Series.
And they would have their pitching, which is already the deepest in terms of starting pitching in the major leagues. They would have it all set up.
Boy, what a tough series for Reggie Sanders. How about 2 for 15 with 9 strikeouts?
You know, think about it. If the Braves ended tonight, and if this one goes 6 or maybe 7, Hershiser has to work, Martinez, Johnson again. Meanwhile, Maddox is ready to start the first game. Would give the Braves a huge edge starting the World Series. Adding another round to the playoffs has really changed the dynamics of the postseason in terms of your pitching. You just cannot be sure that you will always have your rotation set as you would like for each series. In fact, it's unlikely that you will.
Depending on how you finish the regular season, I mean, you can do whatever you want. Then you can juggle your pitching and use kids out of the minor leagues that you bring up for the month of September.
Pena with a bouncer toward the hole. Blowers dives to smother it. From his knees, he throws across the diamond. A heck of a play to save 2 runs. Indians leave the bases loaded and still lead 6-0.
Back to Cleveland in a moment. Braves leading 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th and looking for some insurance. Marquise Grissom facing reliever Mike Jackson leading off the inning. And Grissom, with all of his speed, turns a double into a triple. So Marquise Grissom now in scoring position with no outs in the bottom of the 7th. Bob and Bob.
Thanks again, Hannah. Edgar Martinez is the hitter as we go to the 6th. Infield single and a ground out. Quickly 0-2. Not only is he 1 for 13 in this series, but after going wild in the regular season, 356 for his second batting title, 571 in the division series against the Yanks. He really hasn't hit very many balls hard against Cleveland.
No, you know, and I think as a hitter, Bob, your mind gets messed up a little bit when they throw you constantly away, and you're trying to pull the ball, you're out in front of it. Then you start looking out there, and they come in tight as Hill did earlier with a fastball.
Reaches for this one, pokes it to center. Lofton backpedals for the catch. Let's go back to the last play in the bottom of the 5th. Tony Pena's bid for a single that would have scored 2, and Blowers dives to his left, looks around, sees he has no play at second base. From his knees, gets Pena.
Now on the play that Blowers made, Paul Sorrento coming into second base and jammed his ankle. He was checked by Davey Nelson and stayed in the game. I still think he's hurting a little bit, Bob. I really do. He may come out of the game. They're up 6-0. And no sense in keeping him in there if he's hurting. It's getting colder as we move along.
Yeah, and in the cold weather, that'll stiffen up.
Yeah, I mean, there's no sense. I know he's hurting. And Sorrento, I thought maybe would come out of the game, but he stayed in there, and we'll see.
They got Herbert Perry, of course, on the bench. 1-2 to Tito Martinez, who has struck out and singled. Things coming together nicely for Mike Hargrove in Game 4. Without Bell, without Alomar. Murray, Thome, and Pena come through, and his 4th starter, Ken Hill, has done the same. Kirby, not quite to the track to retire Tito Martinez.
You know, I'm talking about Albert Bell, Bob. I wonder if he's on the bench or if he stayed out here rather than go back into the clubhouse and get some treatment on the leg or on the ankle and try to get himself ready for tomorrow's game. I know He's big, he's strong, and he's tough. He's one of those guys that wants to play, and as we said earlier, would have stayed in tonight and maybe DH. But he's not there, evidently, and maybe up in the clubhouse and getting some treatment.
So now Buhner, who has hit safely in all 9 postseason games for the Mariners, drives one toward the gap in left center. It's in for a hit. Lofton cuts it off before it can be extra bases. And Buhner continues to sizzle. 2 for 2 plus a walk tonight.
Number 16, Mike Flowers.
What a job by Kenny Hill. There's Buddy Bell, former outstanding third baseman, along with Mike Hargrove, who works, I mean, constantly with Jim Thome, day in and day out. Braves still up.
And threatening for more. First and third, 1 out after the triple by Grissom. Flowers is the hitter with a man at first and 2 gone. Strike from Kenny Hill.
Well, Kenny Hill's done a good job tonight, hasn't he, Bob? I mean, he's into the 6th inning here, and I know when they talk about Hill, this is what they expect out of him. If he can get through 6, 7 plus, and they've got the great bullpen, he's up here 6-0 in the 6th inning and cruising.
Buhner is 2 for 2. The rest of the Mariners line up 2 for 19. Hill has allowed 4 hits and he's walked 2. He struck out 4, and 2 of them came when he really needed them. Second and third, nobody out. He fanned Blowers and Soho. Still 0-2 to Blowers. You know, you're right. I shortchanged Ken Hill a strikeout. He has fanned 5 rather than 4.
99 pitches for Kenny Hill through 5 2/3. And still throwing very hard.
He has struck Blowers out twice.
Try to put a little extra on that fastball. The only shot the Mariners really had at him, Bob, back in the 4th. The leadoff single by Tino Martinez, and then Buhner's double. And he comes back to shut him down with a couple of strikeouts.
Flowers hit 23 homers and drove home 96 during the regular year. Doesn't have the world's most compact swing, though. Fanned 128 times. Out holds 1 and 2. Ken Hill has pitched tonight. Here comes his 1-2 pitch. Grounded toward third. Thome will go to second base for the force. We'll pick up on Hill in a moment and complete that point. But first, even though the inning has ended, we want to check with Hannah Storm. Hannah.
Bob, bottom of the 7th, Braves with runners at the corners and 1 out. Mike Jackson facing Fred McGriff. The pass ball by Eddie Taubensee allows Marquise Grissom to score. It is now 2-0. The Atlanta Braves looking for a sweep of the Cincinnati Reds. We'll get you back to Jacobs Field right after this. Welcome back. While we were in that commercial, Mike Devereaux with 2 on. A 3-run home run off Reds reliever Mike Jackson to put the Braves on top by a score of 5-0. It's been a 4-run 7th inning for the Braves, and barring a Reds miracle, they will go to the World Series for the 3rd time in 5 years. Bob?
They've got the brooms ready in Atlanta. Here, it appears as if we're staring at a tied series. Mariners came in leading 2-1. Indians jumped all over Andy Bennis from the start and take a 6-0 lead now to the bottom of the 6th. Bob Wells giving Lou Piniella some innings, and Wayne Kirby with a base hit, and the fans here appreciate the role the bench player provides. One two-time regular, now their fourth outfielder, his first postseason hit. This 1995 League Championship Series game is brought to you by Toyota and their full line of quality cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me. McDonald's, have you had your break today? And Bud Light, if you want great taste that won't fill you up and never lets you down, make it a Bud Light. So Wayne Kirby with a leadoff single in the bottom of the sixth. Top of the order, Lofton. Single, sacrifice fly, ground out. And a ball. I started to say before the end of the last inning that the way Ken Hill has pitched tonight, if this series goes to a seventh game, he could be an option for Mike Hargrove on 3 days rest. Charlie Nagy, who pitched brilliantly last night, would be the logical choice on 4 days rest, until you consider that he is 0-9 for his career in dome stadiums, including 0-5 at the Kingdome. Breaking ball pitcher, ground ball type pitcher, artificial surface in the Kingdome.
Charles Nagy, we had a nice visit with him tonight prior to the game. You know, when you get to that point in the series, Bob, you know, it's kind of everybody at that time, depending on the situation of the game.
Kirby was running as Lofton fouled it off.
But you're right in what you said with Hargrove's options with any of these guys. And he has done a fine job tonight. I mean, Kenny Hill has been very capable and done a good job for the Indians since being acquired by the Cardinals. He was a little shaky when he first got over here. He wins 4, loses 1. And again, in an early season appearance, the postseason anyway, against the Red Sox with 1 inning in that game that we did here. And then tonight, I mean, allowing 4 hits to a pretty potent lineup and 2 belonging to Buhner. I mean, he shut everybody else down.
Kirby skips back.
You know, no matter what the outcome of this game is tonight, Bob, and the series for that matter, I mean, here's 2 pretty well-matched clubs. I mean, they're down 6-0 tonight. But you can't take anything away from Seattle. I mean, they've got a good, solid ball club.
Outside 3-1. I'll tell you something. As you know better than anybody, I am not the #1 fan of the wild card.
Oh, I know that.
But the wild card.
What did I say to start you?
You have to be honest. No, you're going to be surprised by what I'm about to say. You have to be honest. To me, it still doesn't tip the balance, but I realize a lot of people like it. And you have to be honest, it has provided a couple of things. At least this first year, a terrific classic series between the Mariners and the Yankees. Kirby going, line drive, center field. Ken Griffey will make the play. And Kirby heads back to first and has to hustle to get there. A couple of things, though, have been provided by the wild card. One was that series. A job for me. A job for you. Yeah, that's key. Because I would hate to see you wandering the streets any more than you already do. A team like the Mariners, as Lou Piniella heads for the mound and points toward the bullpen, and he's going to bring Bobby Ayala in, I think. A team like the Mariners would have been in an entirely different set of circumstances without the wild card. They might have broken their team up. You know, they offered Edgar Martinez, looking to trim their payroll, as unbelievable as it sounds. They offered Edgar Martinez in the offseason. Piniella thanking Wells for giving him some innings and performing pretty well. And, you know, business must take precedence over this single point that I'm going to make. So we will step aside for the commercial. No matter the playoff format, there will always be commercials. Here is one of them. Please enjoy it. Watching from the lap of luxury, Bill Belichick, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and 2/4 of his starting defensive backfield. Eric Turner and Antonio Langham are also here. The Browns are 3-3, and they have a bye week, so they can turn their attentions, however briefly, toward the baseball playoffs. Wouldn't you know that as soon as I start to say something halfway nice about the wild card, they'd have to go to a commercial. I know you were stunned. Now, don't take this as a total retreat, but an honest man has to give credit where credit is due. And without the wild card, the Mariners would not be the team they are today. They had no reason to believe they had a chance to make a run in the American League West, but they thought they had a shot at the wild card. That is why their owner, John Ellis, heeded the pleas of Woody Woodward, the GM, and the manager, Lou Piniella, and got Vince Coleman, got Andy Bennis. That is why they didn't look look to break up the ball club, and they have financial difficulties, the franchise floundering. Heck, this run they've made might have saved the franchise. They might be able now to get the state legislature to come through with some sort of plan that will get a new stadium built, which is necessary, or else they will sell the team to out-of-town interests. In the offseason, the Mariners actually considered trading Edgar Martinez, who went on to hit .356 and win the batting title to the Mets, for Bobby Jones, a good young pitcher, but it certainly wouldn't have been an equal trade in terms of baseball value, but it would have helped to trim the Mariners' payroll.
And that's what they were talking about. It came down to that, Bob, as you said.
The pursuit of the wild card, however, led to an unexpected championship in the American League West, the first true surge of baseball interest as Ayala comes in to work to Vizquel. In the great Northwest, I mean, they've never had crowds like this or baseball interest like this, so it was a byproduct of this new system. You know, I got through that, and I'm still standing. I didn't become ill.
Oh, no, you're all right.
Vizquel fouls it away.
I've liked it all season long because I can't do anything about it, so the heck with it.
You see, your philosophy...
No, I make it short and sweet.
Right, your philosophy is so much more concise than mine.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look. I like what you say. Don't get me wrong. I like what you say. I don't understand a lot of it because you really keep going, you know, but I do like what you say. I wish this could be...
The runner is going.
Could be telex or something.
I don't mean to interrupt. A stolen base for Kirby.
I like watching you talk. I like that.
Yeah.
There you see Wayne Kirby. And not a bad throw by Widger. Little short hop. Easy play for Soho. But he's in there with a steal.
And now, fans, back to the game. Ayala's pitch to Vizquel. Hit hard, and it's by the diving Tino Martinez. It'll produce the 7th run. Vizquel is on his way to second. Kirby trots home. 7-zip Indians.
You give him something off speed, or if he's sitting on a pitch, he'll pull it on you. They normally play him to hit the ball the other way, Bob, towards left field. But as I said, you give him something off speed, he can hit you deep once in a while, and he'll try to pull you, and he did right there and gets the RBI.
Baerga's been useful tonight. RBI ground out, infield single and scored. Singled his next time, 2 for 3.
Well, what a turnaround year it's been for this guy, huh, Bob? Bobby Ayala, who started out the season for Seattle as their closer. I mean, and he did a heck of a job. And all of a sudden, as the season progressed, went past the All-Star break, and he started to flounder. That brought on Norm Charlton, who was the guy that really did the job the last month of the season.
A chopper over the mound from shortstop Soho on the other side of the bag. Throws Baerga out. Vizquel moves on to third. The run, by the way, was charged to Wells. Kirby had opened the inning with a hit off of him. There's Norm Charlton. We will not see him tonight.
What did Lou Piniella tell you tonight? I was surprised about Charlton because he pitched 3 last night.
Said he would use him for 1 inning tonight, but only with a lead. He would not have brought him in a tie game as he did last night, even for a single inning. But with a lead to close, he would have used him for 1. He pitched 4 innings in Game 2 of the division series against the Yankees, the 15-inning game. A run home and Vizquel at third with 2 outs. And Murray. Nearly a wild pitch by Ayala. After the 2-run homer in the first, Eddie is fouled out and walked.
It's that last offering by Ayala. You see that spin on that ball, a little screwball type effect, riding out away from Murray. Ayala with a good splitter and a pretty good fastball. I mean, early in the season, as I said, Dale Ford, he got nailed with that last foul ball off the bat of Eddie Murray. Here it is one more time. Just off the inside, looked like the inside of the...
He's going to head back to the hotel room and fill that bathtub up with some hot water and just sit in it for a while because he's taking some nicks tonight.
got him on the side. They wear shin guards like catchers, just like everybody else. And that one apparently missed the shin guard and got Dale Ford along the calf. Yep. Chris Widger, 16 ball.
1-2 to Murray, and he struck him out. Another run home, 7-0 Cleveland. We're back to Jacobs Field after this from your local station. We mentioned that at the time of the July trade of Ken Hill from St. Louis to Cleveland, a lot of scouts were saying he had lost something off his fastball from the low 90s down to the mid-80s. Here's his self-assessment. Right after this pitch, I guess, which Soho doesn't get. Now roll it, boys.
I really didn't lose anything on my fastball. The thing is, I was throwing across my body, and anytime you throw across the body, you're going to lose velocity. But now I feel really good. I'm throwing in the high 90s and 94, 95 on a consistent basis, and I got location with my breaking ball, so everything coming together since I've been over here in Cleveland working with the pitching coach.
Giving some credit to Mark Wiley for his turnaround. Soho with an infield hit. A perfect throw, and Hill might have had a shot at getting him. I think he hesitated for just a second, to see if it had a chance to go foul before he picked it up.
I think the throw hit. I don't know if the throw hit Soho or not, or went off the glove of Sorrento. It looked like it hit Soho, yeah. Good throw gets him. Gets him by plenty.
So the Mariners with a base runner to start the 7th, and Chris Widger with his first at-bat. He replaced Dan Wilson midway through the game. Nothing wrong with Wilson so far as we know, but at that point the Mariners trailed 6-0. These at-bats are important, not just to Widger, but to a manager in a situation like this. Get a guy a few ABs, it may come back to matter in a situation that's more important, just like the innings Ayala is pitching now. You mentioned that he started the year as the closer. He lost that job to Norm Charlton. A good stint here could be a confidence builder for Ayala, and if Piniella had to use him in a clutch situation later, this outing might have a bearing on it.
I mean, he's still here talking about Bobby Ayala. He's still on the club. He's still a big part of this ball club. And no matter what the situation is, I mean, there may come a time before this series is over when he does have to use Ayala in that situation. And the same for a guy like Widger. I like it. I like when managers take a shot at a kid like this and put him in a ball game, and taking nothing away from Dan Wilson, because he's done an excellent job. But, you know, here's a guy that's got a chance to play. And in a game like tonight, Bob, it's 7-0, and we're in the 7th inning. Why not? I mean, he's been in there for an inning or so. This is his first AB. What do you got now?
Right-hander Tavares, left-hander Poole. Now, when you were the backup catcher, the Phillies, the Cardinals, the Braves, would you say to Fred Haney or to Gene Mauch or to Johnny Keane, come on, it's 6-0. What damage could I do?
I would have to actually call the park.
From a hotel?
Yeah. Can I come out today?
They'd leave you back there just in case.
Yeah, we'll call you. Don't call. If we need you, we'll call.
Well, you know, somebody's got to make sure that housekeeping takes care of the room.
That's right.
3-2 pitch to Widger.
I didn't mind going to those games. I like to play. I mean, I didn't play all that much. I mean, there were games that I started and a lot more that I didn't start. But I didn't mind at all. I mean, you know, when duty calls, you go.
Who can dispute that philosophy?
You got that right. Here we are tonight.
You got it. Did you ever play in the World Series?
No, I did not.
No.
What I did in New York was take a lot of the garbage that the fans were throwing on the field and take it back upstairs to them.
With the 64 Cardinals?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there were no LCS games then. It was just independent, go straight to the World Series. You were on the 64 Cardinals.
That's right. Absolutely.
And they somehow won the World Series in 7 over the Yankees without your services.
Yeah, that was the shocker.
How do you account for that?
I think there are still a lot of people that are very upset about that.
I'm personally stunned.
I know that.
That's just generally speaking. That bit of information just adds to it.
To me, buddy.
Another 3-2 pitch. Hill takes care of Widger. He makes a right turn and heads for the dugout, and we head for Anna Storm.
Well, Bob, make it a 5-run 7th inning for the Atlanta Braves. This is Luis Polonia pinch hitting against Dave Burba. The bouncer up the third base line scores Javi Lopez to put the Braves on top 6-0. We have now gone to the bottom of the 8th. So the Atlanta Braves just 3 outs away from the World Series. Bob?
And one of these times, Uecker, they're going to get the brass ring all the way through. They have been, in the 90s, overall, baseball's best team. They have accomplished the most, all things considered, in the 90s, but they've never won the whole thing.
Well, that was my last club. That was it for this ex-player. That was it.
First year the Braves were in Atlanta, right? 66
No,
or 67?
I came 67.
Okay,
Yeah,
second year for the Braves in Atlanta.
And in 68, when I went to spring training, it's a tough time for a player. But Lumen Harris, I can remember telling me there were no visitors allowed in the clubhouse, so I knew I was gone.
That's one way of getting a guy.
That was it for me. Yeah.
Kind of a compassionate way to notify somebody.
Dug a hole and buried my uniform just to make sure.
Change the locks. Were you helpful to Aaron, Matthews, Adcock, guys like that? Batting tips? Rides home? Hey, whatever they needed.
No, I went there to catch Necro. That's when Bill Necro became a starting pitcher.
Coleman lifts the 0-2 pitch in the left. Kirby playing shallow right there with the catch. Which brings us to tonight's Toyota Diamond Dust Baseball Fact. Mickey Mantle and Mr. October Reggie Jackson each hit 18 home runs in postseason play. Reggie, LCS, and World Series combined. Mickey only in the World Series. Which Hall of Famer? This is a good question. Which Hall of Famer holds the record for the most postseason at-bats without a homer? I have no idea. You immediately think Yankees. You know, all those years in the World Series, 40s, 50s, 60s. Then you think of guys at the top of the order. The Scooter comes to mind. Phil Rizzuto. Don't know if that's the answer. They let us guess along with you. They never provide us the answer until it's time to reveal it. A ball and a
Without a home run. Without a home run.
No home runs.
Okay.
Most postseason at-bats. Carr is 0 for 3. He's behind in the count 1-2.
Your ex-partner?
Tony Kubek. No, Kubek hit 2 home runs.
I know that.
In the World Series against the Braves.
I just wanted
in
to
one
talk
game.
about Tony.
Yeah.
Good friend.
Terrific shortstop and broadcaster. Cora with a slow roller. Hill off the mound is short hopping and shovel it over to Sorrento. Mariners leave another man. Hill's still got the shutout going. Stretch time at Jacobs Field. Here we have modern technology run amok. First, this guy gets a Polaroid of himself and one of his buddies with Lou Piniella. Then he shows it to our cameraman, convinces our producer, John Gonzalez, to take the shot, uses his cell phone to call his wife or somebody at home to make sure they're watching so that they can see him on television. And Piniella can only hope this guy doesn't commit a crime, and then Pinella's picture winds up in the National Enquirer or something. Hovering over Jacobs Field, providing an aerial view, is one of America's most enduring corporate images, the Goodyear blimp. It would be very difficult to name a major sporting event in the last 70 years where a Goodyear blimp has not had a presence. That would be the second quiz question. Name a major sporting event of the last 70 years in which a Goodyear blimp has not had a presence. Let's watch a pitch or two from this angle. As you can plainly see, it was a strike to Jim Thome, starting the bottom of the 7th. Bobby Ayala still on the hill for Lou Piniella's Mariners, who trail it 7-0. A ball and a strike. Thome has walked, hit a 2-run homer, and struck out. For those of you in Cleveland, this is old hat, but many people are watching the Indians for the first or second time this year, especially with the regionalized format in the postseason. So you may not be aware that not only, as the count goes to 2-2, were the Indians 144 this year, but that, in terms of percentage, at .694, is the best percentage any team in either league has had since the 1954 Indians, the last pennant winners for Cleveland, went 111 and 43 for a percentage of .721. Full count. When you make the list of teams with better percentages than this year's Indians, you're talking about some of the great teams of all time. The 39 Yankees of Joe DiMaggio, the 31 A's of Al Simmons, Jimmy Fox, I think, was on that team, and Lefty Grove, the 1927 Yankees. Those are the teams in the last 6-7 decades in the American League with a better percentage than this year's Indians. In the National League, you'd have to go all the way back to Hannes Wagner's 1909 Pittsburgh Pirates to find a team with a better winning percentage than the Cleveland Indians this year. And yet, they might not make it to the World Series because these upstart Mariners are giving them a tussle. Bouncer back through the box, but Soho has him played perfectly and gets him by half a step. Okay, which Hall of Famer holds the record for the most postseason at-bats without a home run? The answer is Frankie Frisch, the Fordham Flash. 197 postseason at-bats, never hit one out. I imagine he played in the World Series. I know he played in the series for the Cardinals. I think he was with the Gas House Gang in 1934, and maybe with the Giants as well. Frankie Frisch.
Now, that was beyond me. I didn't know that one.
So Bobby Ayala now is done. Jeff Nelson's going to come in. Nelson's had an eventful week. He came in apart from the rest of the team, arrived about 6 o'clock last night before Game 3. He had stayed in Seattle. His wife, Colette, had labor-induced and gave birth to their first child, a girl named Chandler Grace. And with that bit of personal business happily taken care of, Jeff Nelson ordered a plane, got here in time to be available late in the game last night, although Lou Piniella did not use him, and now he calls upon him here in the 7th inning.
All they had to do was let her watch that 5th game of the series against the Yankees. That should have brought it on real quickly.
Huh? Interesting observation. Now, off to Atlanta here. The Braves looking to put the finishing touches on a sweep of the Cincinnati Reds. Greg Gumbel and Joe Morgan are calling the game for NBC, and here they are.
Looking at his last moments as the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. He will be gone once the Reds season winds down. Mark Wohlers has come on here in the 9th inning for Atlanta. He will face Barry Larkin, Ron Gant, and Reggie Sanders as the Braves try to close out the Reds in 4 games.
It's kind of ironic that these are the 3 hitters that he has to face. Larkin, Gant, and Sanders, the ones who are counted on to carry the Reds through this series, and it just has not happened that way.
Barry Larkin sporting a .412 average. It has been Gant and Sanders who have come up woefully shy in the power department. 1-1.
But even if you look at the numbers for Larkin, he has gotten on base himself with a couple of infield hits, but he has not hit with runners in scoring position. He has left runners. He has not driven in a run in this series either. So the 3 big guys in the middle just have not been able to produce.
Tight. 2 balls and a strike. Steve Avery started for Atlanta tonight, gave the Braves 6 strong innings. Bobby Cox says, I'll pick that.
And of course, Pete Short started for the Reds, and he pitched very, very well. So the starters in this entire series have pitched well for both teams. It has been the difference has been the bullpen.
there, Steve Avery. Stands to get the victory here tonight. And the Braves content to sit back and let the Mariners and the Indians fight it out, and then to start the World Series with a well-rested pitching staff. Larkin goes down swinging. The ex-Brave Ron Gant. Hitting out of the number 3 slot, Reggie Sanders out of number 4. They are combined 5 out of 30 in this series. Foul ball.
And I don't think there's any doubt that Gant has been pressing from the beginning. You know, he played for the Braves. He wanted to prove to them that they made a mistake. And so I'm sure he put a lot of pressure on himself to help win this series single-handedly.
Not worked out that way. On the infield, Chipper Jones. 2 out.
And I guess it's only fitting because he has suffered the most in this series that he would be the final out that the Braves would have to collect to win it. And Reggie Sanders has had a tough series, but I'd say one thing for him, he has battled the entire series. He never quit.
Braves fans on their feet. The Cincinnati Reds stand to set a record you don't want to lay claim to. Just 5 runs scored in the National League Championship Series. Only last night did they score more than 1 run in any of the games. They scored 2. 0-2. Just a $115 with runners on base. Performance in the National League Championship Series. A 3-hit shutout of the Cincinnati Reds here. The Reds, averaging 5 runs a game during the regular season, scored 1, 2, 2, and none.
And Indians to settle the issue in the American League Championship Series. It seems certain that we'll head for Game 5 tomorrow night, tied at 2 apiece. Fazio against Hershiser. at Jacobs Field and then back to the Kingdome in Seattle for at least Game 6 on Tuesday.
A little shocked by that Atlanta series? I am.
Yeah, I thought the Braves would win it. I gave them a slight edge, but I thought it would be a terrific series. Cincinnati's a good ball club, but they hit a terrible slump, and a lot of it's brought on, of course, by the quality of the Braves pitching.
Absolutely.
Here's Jim Poole now out of the bullpen, so Hill will not get a chance for a complete game shutout. He worked 7 innings, allowed 5 hits, pitched very well. Ken Griffey, the first man Poole faces. The ball deflected to Vizquel off Poole's glove, so score at 1-6-3, and Junior is out of there. He's 0 for 3 with a walk tonight, and Lee's shaking his head.
Griffey talking with him before the game tonight, very relaxed and really looking forward to this game tonight, the second game in the series here. And again, as I said, the Seattle clubhouse before the game tonight, very relaxed, Bob. I mean, they were ready for the game and were looking forward to facing Hill. With Andy Bennis on, who got hit hard and hit hard early.
Edgar Martinez trying to get on track. Infield single, a ground out, and a fly out. 1 for 14 in the series. And we welcome many of you who have been watching the Braves and the Reds. Atlanta completing the 4-game sweep. Our congratulations to them, Bob Costas and Bob Uecker at Jacobs Field. Cleveland trying to finish off Game 4. For those of you who were not with us from the beginning, the Indians jumped all over Andy Bennis with 3 in the first, 2 of them on a long Eddie Murray homer to right center. They got another run in the second. Jim Thome hit a 2-run opposite field homer in the third. Bennis was gone, and it was 6-0 at that point. They tacked on a run in the 6th. Ken Hill worked through 7, pitched very, very well. Now he's left. Jim Poole coming in to finish up as we start the 8th. 1 out here, nobody on, and a 2-2 pitch coming to Edgar Martinez. They check it first, and they punch him out of there. And he is now 1 for 15 in this series, the 2-time American League batting titleist.
Here's that last pitch, low breaking ball from Jimmy Poole, and Edgar Martinez, who has really had problems in this series. Again, the check swing strikeout. And Martinez, he continues to struggle. And he can't figure it out himself.
Tino Martinez, 1 for 3.
It has really been interesting watching the way the Indian staff have worked to Martinez tonight, Bob. I mean, early in the game with Hill out there, working him constantly away with fastballs and off-speed stuff. And then in the one at-bat, his second at-bat where he comes up there, or third at-bat where he comes up there and looking for stuff away, they jam him inside. He hits that weak little ground ball. And I mean, they frustrated him all night long. And in this series, for that matter. A guy that normally takes pitches away and tries to go to right field, he's been trying to pull that pitch tonight. And in this series,
Poole working a crisp inning, and ahead of Martinez, 1 and 2. A finesse left-hander. He and Assenmacher kind of fit that description. In contrast to those guys who come in with the high heat, like Embry and Tavares and Plunk and, of course, Mesa out of the Cleveland bullpen. 2 and 2.
But isn't it funny, Bob, how this game changes day to day? I mean, with a great hitter like Martinez.
Got a piece of it, and Pena has to apply the tag. Poole comes in, works an impressive 8, sets them down in order, strikes out 2. As we go to the bottom of the 8th, here's the MCI proof positive replay of the game. It came early, first inning, a run already home, and Eddie Murray crushes an Andy Bennis slider deep into the seats in right center field for his second postseason home run. Had one against the Red Sox in the division series. That made it 3-0. The Mariners were never in this game.
Now Kenny Hill made it stand up along with Jimmy Poole, who came on to work in the 8th, worked 1, 2, 3. And with Buhner, Blowers, and Soho coming up for Seattle in the 9th, it's 7-0 Cleveland. Getting back to our little discussion, Bob, a minute ago, in talking about hitters, how you go one day, I mean, you're going great for a month or whatever. A guy like Edgar Martinez, who's had a great year. And you go from one day hitting everything they throw at you to the next day and the next day in a week. Right. Into a slump that you just can't understand. And how guys with his ability, any hitter like that, can go into a slump for that period of time. It's really, in sitting back behind the plate and catching and watching hitters, it really is amazing how different a guy can go from one day to the next and stay that way and can't get himself out of it.
Pena flails at it wildly, 0-2. Did you ever go into a slump like that, Uke, in your illustrious career?
Mine lasted over the winter, too. I always thought by the end of the season, if I went to spring training, they'd be over, but they were right back in the spring.
So you held the groove. Once you hit a groove, you maintained it.
Oh, boy. I could tell you about grooves, buddy. Yeah.
0-2 pitch from Nelson to Pena.
Oh, for June and July were nothing for me. That was easy. No, I went back to the Braves the second time. It was to catch Phil Niekro, as I said before. He became a starting pitcher at that time. And plus, the Braves didn't think I was bad the first time, and they wanted to see me the second time, and I showed them.
They just had to be fully convinced. They couldn't believe their eyes the first time.
Little frosty in Cleveland tonight. Last night's game, as we said earlier, 73 degrees at the start of last night's game. But tonight it has cooled down, and tomorrow things looking real bad.
Temperatures expected to be in the high 30s when Oral Hershiser and Chris Bosio take them out a little bit after 7 o'clock Eastern time for Game 5 at Jacobs Field. 1-2 pitch to Pena, and he hangs in again. Eddie Murray early in the game was walking along the bench in the dugout telling his teammates to put their bats in front of that heater. Get the bat warm. Said the ball would jump off the bat a little bit better if you had a little heat coming out of that stick.
I'm glad they didn't have those heaters in the dugout when I was getting it. They put it in there.
Just incinerate the bat. Yeah.
Burn this.
Take the ashes up there.
Oh, how things have changed. And no heaters, coolers, and dugouts in those years.
3-2.
Modern ballparks now with air-conditioned dugouts and heat. So those old ballparks, Bob, had those gas burners in the dugouts. Everybody was afraid to light them.
Pena draws a walk to start the 8th. Surely there must be an anecdote concerning a hilarious mishap which you're about to lead into.
No, there isn't. That's the problem.
Oh, that's the whole thing. Huh?
Yeah, they'd rather let you sit there and freeze. There was nobody, ground crew people, anybody else wanted to light those things. And nobody paid much attention to them anyway.
Wayne Kirby got a chance to play tonight when Albert Bell came up lame. Bell trying to get out of the way of a pitch which hit him on the right instep. A Norm Charlton pitch in the 9th inning of last night's Game 3. Wasn't injured so much by the impact of the ball, but when he came down, he tried to skip over it. When he came down, he twisted that right ankle. Experienced swelling overnight. They tried to get it loose and get the swelling to go down before the game, but they couldn't correct the situation enough for him to play. They even considered the possibility of DHing him right up until game time, so he wouldn't have to go through the rigors of playing the field. Here's the play. The pitch hit him, and the way he came down on the right foot is really what did the damage. He stayed in the game and had one more at-bat. Doesn't play tonight after missing only one game all season long, and he's doubtful for tomorrow. So Kirby started in left field, and he's gone 1 for 3 with a stolen base.
And the other shocker tonight, Bob, after we found out about Albert Bell, the fact that Sandy Alomar came up with a pinched nerve in his neck from a bad night's sleep and said he was doubtful and ended up not playing tonight. The Mariners, thinking they're getting a break without Bell in there and Alomar, end up on the short end here 7-0 in the 8th.
Alomar's got to pick up the phone and call 1-800-MATTRESS. Believe off that last S for savings. He's going to get a new bump if that neck is going to go out in the middle of the playoffs.
His brother's staying at his house here. Roberto's here, too. Yeah, he was here, too.
Robbie gave an optimistic report, said Sandy's feeling better, should be able to play tomorrow. Kirby hits it back to the box. Nelson is solo covering second, throws on the run, and a 1-6-3 double play.
Second double play started by Jeff Nelson. Into the seventh on a 1-6-3 double play. Here it is again on a ball hit by Kirby. You said earlier, Bob, he became the proud papa of a new baby a couple of days ago. And flew in here yesterday, did not come with the Mariners on their charter. And there you see the new arrival in Mama.
Wife Colette, baby daughter Chandler Grace. Welcome to the planet Earth, and we step aside for a moment. Bill Risley taking his warm-up tosses, and tonight's Chevrolet player of the game is Ken Hill. In conjunction with this program, Chevrolet will contribute a total of $50,000 to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America in the names of all players of the game for the 1995 Major League Baseball season. Hill worked 7 innings, gave up 5 hits, no runs, struck out 6, walked 3. And let's check with Hannah Storm. Hannah.
Bob, the Atlanta Braves are in the World Series, and we're going to send you back to Fulton County Stadium right now, where Johnny Bench is standing by with the MVP of the NLCS, the Braves' Mike Devereaux. Johnny?
Joining me from the Chevrolet Company is David Clem, who's about to present something very nice to Mike Devereaux.
Thank you, Johnny, and congratulations, Mike, on a great series. Thank you very much. You know, Chevrolet and all the Chevrolet dealers are really proud to present you with the Most Valuable Player Award. Thank you so much. I'll tell you what, because of what you have accomplished, Chevrolet will also present a 1996 Chevy Astro van in your name for the Special Olympics. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're going to send you back to Jacobs Field now, where the Indians lead the Mariners by a score of 7-0 in the bottom of the 8th. Back to Bob Costas.
Hannah, thank you. Kenny Lofton steps in. 2 out, nobody on. Bill Risley might face only 1 hitter here, as this will be the Indians' last time at bat, barring a miracle rally by Seattle. Risley was up and throwing late in the game in extra innings last night, and had the game been prolonged, he might eventually have relieved Norm Charlton. But Charlton worked 3 innings and picked up the victory in relief of Randy Johnson.
Another hard-throwing youngster for Seattle. Good fastball and decent breaking stuff.
Here it comes on 3-1. And it's in there to Lofton.
Watch Risley, Bob, as he gets ready to deliver out of his stretch. I mean, most guys pitch out of the stretch, or even a pitcher, until the last possible moment, take the ball out of the glove as late as they can. Watch this guy. Get a shot from the other side. He actually pulls his hand out of there before he ever starts his delivery.
Lofton is now 1 for 3, plus a sacrifice fly and a walk, and he'd hit the ball hard each of his 4 previous trips prior to drawing the base on balls.
Now, Lofton last night, too, the only left-hander in there against Randy Johnson, and he comes up with a couple of base hits in that winning effort by Seattle.
Omar Vizquel is next.
Watch this, Bob. As he gets set there, he uncouples, I mean, really early. I mean, there's not a lot of guys. I don't think I've seen anybody that does that. Takes the ball out. Look at that. Takes it out of his glove. I mean, way prior to his delivery start. Rather unusual.
Lofton with the lead behind him. Martinez is not holding him on. And observing baseball etiquette, leading 7-0, even in the playoffs, Lofton doesn't take the base. He could so easily steal here.
Well, you know, there are a lot of players and a lot of managers that don't adhere to those rules. I mean, when you have a club like Cleveland or Seattle, for that matter, I mean, clubs that have the ability to score a lot of runs, I mean, you take as much as they're going to give you. And if they give you a run late in the game, you take it because of their scoring ability, their ability to come back, and especially this club here, Cleveland.
2-2 pitch. Bouncing ball. Cora at second base. will move to the ninth, with Cleveland looking at... What's this? With a comfortable 7-0 lead, did the Indians go to the bullpen and call for the wild thing? Rick Vaughn, as played by Charlie Sheen? Not quite. This is actually the guy who was Sheen's double.
That's right.
In Major League 1 and 2. Charlie Sheen actually had played some ball and was a very representative-looking pitcher. This guy was used only for close-ups, as you can plainly see. Man!
That was before the game here tonight, and yeah, it was. You're right. He did not double for Charlie, and then the action scenes, the scenes where Charlie Sheen actually had to throw the ball. He reminds me of somebody I'd seen before throw a baseball, and I'm trying to think of who it was, and Ma Perkins or somebody.
Chad O'Jay's first appearance in the series.
Coming in, though, didn't they? Excuse me, Bobby. Came out of the bullpen. They played that wild thing theme here. As soon as I saw him, I wanted to give him the eater, Ricky.
Well, the manager in that movie, I forget the actor who played it, but he reminded me so much of Dick Williams.
He was great.
Give him the eater, Ricky.
Jay Buhner starts it in the ninth. O.J. looking for the last 3 outs. You know, Charlie Sheen really had played some high school ball. I think he was a shortstop in the Cincinnati area, and he looked like a guy who was a real pitcher. He did a very good job.
He threw the ball hard. He threw the ball very, very good. Very good.
2-0 pitch to Buhner, who, despite his teammates' difficulties, has a perfect night. A walk, a double, a single. Within 4 of Greg Luzinski's record. Pena for a look, but this one is too far back. So it's guaranteed. We're heading for Seattle.
Back to Seattle.
At least
we won't be sleepless in Seattle. I can guarantee you that.
Lots of coffee houses up there.
Oh, yeah.
Little cappuccino, espresso. Cafe latte for you.
Might even listen to Puget Sound. I've never heard it.
Here's another shot of Buhner's bat. They just cannot cool him down. On his way to second. Nope. He decides trailing 7-0. He'll stay right there. Kirby has a terrific arm. As we mentioned earlier, when he was a regular 2 seasons ago, he led the league with 19 outfield assists. All things considered, Buhner stays put. This 1995 League Championship Series game has been brought to you by Wendy's Spicy Chicken Sandwich. Get it while it's hot. The Gatorade Company, Gatorade Thirst Quencher. Life is a sport. Drink it up. And the makers of Denorex. Time permitting, folks, we'll be joining the John Larroquette Show in progress. And the entire country, now that the NLCS has ended in a sweep, will be with us here at Jacobs Field tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time for Game 5. Rich Amaral comes off the bench. And he's on deck to be the pinch hitter for Soho. There's Amaral.
Another guy that filled in so capably for Ken Griffey Jr. along with Alex Diaz when Griffey was down, playing in center, splitting duties with Diaz.
A ball and a strike to Blowers, who has fanned twice and grounded out. Earlier in the game, the only times the Indians have had to, in a sense, play from behind and experience the real pressure of a pennant race or postseason play have been in this series against Seattle. Down 1-0, they needed Game 2 at the Kingdome and got it. After a very tough loss here at home last night, they needed this one at Jacobs Field to even the series, and apparently they've gotten that. They went through the whole season unchallenged. There was no pennant race for them.
Nope.
There was only a sense of what they could personally accomplish, and they seized that challenge by winning the last 5 games in a row because they wanted to win 100 even in the shortened season and have a chance to rank with the great teams of all time. Although Game 1 against the Red Sox was close, the division series wound up being a sweep. This is the first time deep into October that they've truly been tested. The 3rd time tonight that Blowers is fanned. One out of the 9th. The executive producer of NBC Sports is Tom Roy. Coordinating producer of the Baseball Network, Flip, John J. Filippelli. Coordinating producer for NBC Sports and producer of tonight's game, John Gonzalez. Tonight's game directed by Andy Rosenberg. Associate directors John Coleman and Stephen Lawrence. Assistants to the producer, Carlos DiMolina and Matt Lip. Technical manager, Bill Cantor. Thanks to Mark Wolf and Ken Fouts, who worked the game with Greg Gumbel and Joe Morgan in Atlanta. Joe Morgan will join us to make it a 3-man booth in the games NBC covers in the World Series.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Joe again. We had the opportunity to work last year, Bob, in the All-Star game, and had a good time, had a great time.
Amaral batting for Soho. The 0-1 pitch from O.J. bounces away, and Buhner takes second base. Our thanks as well to Jeff Sleed, capably handling the statistics in the booth, and to Jim Gray, who was roaming around the ballpark.
First on the scene was Slider when he went down. Indian mascot, if you weren't with us earlier tonight, took a dive out in right center field off the fence. Right field bleacher area out there. He was waltzing around and doing his little thing out there and took a dive and injured his knee.
And was actually on the field hobbling around the warning track while a couple of pitches were thrown to Carlos Baerga, one of which he put in play.
And this crowd, as they have done in Seattle throughout the postseason, on their feet with 2 strikes.
He got him. So Chad O.J. puts a couple of Ks in the scorebook.
Nice change of pace. This is off speed, and Amaral way out in front of it. Back-to-back strikeouts now for O.J. Doug Strange going to be the batter, and here's Mike Hargrove coming out now to going to make a pitching change here. He has. Yep. Just to get some work in for the Indian bullpen.
Well, now Strange is a switch hitter. But he wants to give Alan Embry a chance to face one batter, so we're back after this from your local station. Bob Costas back with Bob Uecker. Multiple changes here for what could be the last batter in a 7-0 game. O.J. is pulled. Embry comes in. Strange was announced as the pinch hitter. When they went to the left-hander, even though Strange is a switch hitter, Alex Rodriguez comes off the bench to bat for him.
Now here's what the big part of the future for the Seattle Mariners. Boy, this kid's an excellent shortstop, and with Soho doing such a fine job, this guy saw limited duty this year, Bob. He's been up and down a couple of times, but this kid can play. He's going to be a good player.
Number 1 pick in the whole draft in '93. He had 360 at Tacoma, just finding his way in the big league.
Yep.
But it's because of his promise that they dealt Vizquel here to Cleveland in exchange for Felix Vermeer. Because in the long run, this kid's their shortstop.
Oh, he is, Bob. He's got great ability. I had a chance to see him earlier in the season in a game at County Stadium in Milwaukee, and came up with a couple of big base hits there. He's got some power. He's a big kid.
2 balls and a strike. The report on Slider, by the way, the mascot, an update, he tore a couple of ligaments.
Oh, wow.
When he tumbled off the wall, and he is off the active roster for the rest of this series and the World Series if they make it. Open season on mascots. He and the Mariner Moose down for the count.
That's really too bad. He's a big part of baseball here in Cleveland. He's enjoyed by everybody here in the ballpark, and a tough break for him. That's tough.
One strike away from evening the series. The 2-2 to Rodriguez. Got him. O.J. and Embry combined to strike out the side of the ninth. Hill is the winner. Bennis is the loser. It now becomes a best 2 out of 3 series for a trip to the World Series. Game 5 tomorrow. Bosio against Hershiser. And the advantage, if there is one, again seems to shift to the Cleveland Indians, at least with tomorrow's pitching pairing. But if they play 3 more, 2 of them are at the Kingdome, so take your choice. Coming up, a special episode of the John Larroquette Show. Tomorrow we're here at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. The whole country will be with us for Game 5 from Jacobs Field. Orion Tomey had homers. Hill was brilliant on the mound. Indians win it 7-0. From Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker, I'm Bob Costas. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow from Cleveland.
The 95 World Series, the Breeders' Cup, Super Bowl 30, the NBA Finals, the Olympic Games, all on America's sports leader, NBC.